Delayed priority signals. People reveal their real priorities through what they keep delaying. In human dynamics, words can create hope, but repeated postponement usually reveals the truth more clearly than any romantic promise. Someone may say they want to see you, call you, define the relationship, or make time for you, yet the same plans keep being pushed forward. At first, the delays may seem harmless. Life gets busy, schedules change, and genuine problems happen. But when postponement becomes a pattern, it becomes a signal. The emotional danger is that people often focus on the promise instead of the behavior. They hold on to phrases like soon, when things settle down, or I've just been overwhelmed lately. These words keep hope alive while requiring no real commitment. The person waiting begins to excuse the distance, lower their expectations, and question whether they are asking for too much. In reality, priorities usually receive attention. People may not always have unlimited time, but they make visible efforts toward what matters to them. They communicate clearly, suggest another date, and prevent uncertainty from becoming emotional punishment. Someone who genuinely values the connection may delay once, but they will not leave you permanently waiting without direction. This signal becomes darker when delay is used deliberately. Some people postpone commitment because uncertainty keeps the other person emotionally invested. They give enough attention to stop you from leaving, then withdraw before you feel secure. This creates a cycle where small moments of affection feel unusually powerful because they arrive after distance. Pay close attention to what is always postponed. If your time, needs, questions, and emotional security are repeatedly delayed, the delay itself may already be the answer. The mood controller. The person controlling the room's mood often holds the most influence. In human dynamics, this person may not be the loudest, most attractive, or most confident. They are often the one whose energy silently decides how everyone else behaves. When they laugh, others relax. When they become distant, the room becomes tense. When they approve of someone, others become warmer. Their emotional reactions act like invisible instructions. This influence is powerful because humans naturally monitor the group for signs of safety, rejection, and acceptance. In social settings, people quickly notice whose reaction matters most. They may glance at that person before laughing at a joke, sharing an opinion, or welcoming someone new. Without saying anything directly, the mood controller can make another person feel valued, ignored, embarrassed, or desired. In human dynamics, this signal reveals hidden social power. A person may appear friendly toward you until someone influential becomes cold. Suddenly, their behavior changes. Their interest may weaken, their tone may shift, and their confidence around you may disappear. This shows that their feelings are not fully independent. They are being shaped by the emotional leader of the group. The darker side appears when someone controls the mood deliberately. They may reward people with warmth, laughter, and attention, then withdraw those things whenever they want obedience. Because everyone wants the comfortable atmosphere to return, they begin adjusting themselves around that person. They speak more carefully, hide disagreements, and work harder for approval. In romantic relationships, this can become emotional control. One partner's mood begins deciding whether the home feels peaceful or dangerous. The other partner learns to scan their face, measure their tone, and avoid anything that might trigger distance, anger, or silence. Over time, influence becomes fear disguised as emotional sensitivity. The delayed reply signal. A delayed reply may signal inner conflict when it suddenly breaks someone's usual pattern. In human dynamics, timing can reveal what words hide. If a person normally responds quickly but suddenly takes hours or days after a serious question, emotional message, or moment of closeness, the silence may show that something inside them has changed. The delay does not always mean rejection. They may be confused, afraid of commitment, worried about saying the wrong thing, or struggling with feelings they did not expect. Sometimes people delay because replying honestly would force them to admit something uncomfortable. They may like you, but fear losing freedom. They may want closeness, but feel unready. They may also be deciding whether to continue the connection without appearing cruel. This is why patterns matter more than isolated moments. A busy day means little. A sudden change in rhythm after emotional intimacy means more. If the delay repeatedly appears whenever the conversation becomes serious, vulnerable, or future-focused, the person may be avoiding emotional responsibility. The darker side appears when delayed replies are used intentionally. Some people create silence to increase anxiety and make their attention feel more valuable. They reply warmly, disappear without explanation, then return as though nothing happened. This uncertainty can make the other person check their phone constantly, replay conversations, and work harder for reassurance. Over time, the delay becomes a form of control. The waiting person begins adjusting their messages, hiding their needs, and fearing that honesty will cause another disappearance. A simple pause now carries emotional power because it has been connected to rejection. Do not judge one delayed reply. Watch when it happens, what came before it, and whether the silence creates clarity or keeps you emotionally trapped. The self-image defense. People defend their self-image more fiercely than facts. In human dynamics, this means someone may reject clear evidence if accepting it would damage the person they believe themselves to be. A partner who sees themselves as loyal may deny that their secret messages were betrayal. Someone who believes they are caring may dismiss the pain they caused because admitting it would threaten their identity. This is why many arguments are not truly about what happened. They are about protecting an internal story. When confronted, the person may change details, minimize their actions, blame your reaction, or focus on one small mistake you made. These responses allow them to avoid seeing themselves as dishonest, selfish, jealous, or emotionally careless. The more important the self-image, the stronger the defense becomes. Someone who needs to appear desirable may hide rejection. Someone who sees themselves as independent may deny developing feelings. Someone who believes they are always calm may call you dramatic whenever you expose their anger. The darker side appears when self-protection becomes reality distortion. Instead of admitting what happened, the person repeatedly rewrites the event until you begin questioning your own memory. They may insist you misunderstood, imagine the tone, caused the behavior, or are too sensitive to judge it fairly. This becomes emotionally dangerous because you may start working harder to prove facts that were already obvious. You collect messages, remember exact words, and explain your pain repeatedly, hoping enough evidence will finally make them understand. But the evidence may never be the real problem. Understanding you would require them to confront a version of themselves they cannot tolerate. When protecting their innocence matters more than repairing your hurt. Facts become enemies they must defeat. The hidden emotion signal. The emotion someone hides most may be the emotion guiding them. In human dynamics, people rarely conceal feelings that have no power over them. They hide the emotions that threaten their pride, safety, control, or self-image. A person may act indifferent while secretly feeling jealous. They may appear angry when they are actually afraid of losing you. They may joke about commitment because admitting they want closeness feels too vulnerable. Hidden emotions often escape through behavior. Jealousy may appear as criticism of people who show you attention. Fear may appear as sudden distance after intimacy. Shame may appear as defensiveness when you ask a simple question. Attraction may appear as teasing, unnecessary competition, or constant awareness of where you are and who you are speaking to. This is why the visible emotion is not always the real one. Anger can cover hurt. Coldness can cover longing. Confidence can cover insecurity. When people cannot express what they feel directly, the emotion finds another route. The darker side appears when someone makes you suffer for emotions they refuse to admit. Instead of saying they feel threatened, they may control your friendships. Instead of admitting they fear rejection, they may reject you first. Instead of confessing attachment, they may withdraw affection and wait for you to chase them. This creates emotional confusion because their words and behavior no longer match. They say they do not care, yet react strongly when you pull away. They claim to trust you, yet monitor small changes in your attention. Pay attention to the emotion that appears indirectly, especially during closeness, distance, jealousy, and conflict. What someone repeatedly hides may be quietly making their decisions for them. The over-explaining signal. Over-explaining simple choices can reveal doubt, guilt, or fear of judgment. In human dynamics, people often add unnecessary details when they feel uncomfortable with the truth, uncertain about their decision, or worried about how you will react. A simple answer becomes a long story filled with explanations, excuses, timelines, and details you never asked for. This does not always mean someone is lying. Some people over-explain because they are anxious, afraid of disappointing others, or used to defending themselves. They may have learned that every decision must be justified before it is accepted. But when the behavior appears suddenly around one specific topic, it can reveal emotional tension. A person who feels secure usually explains clearly and stops. A person struggling internally may keep talking because silence would force them to sit with your reaction. They may repeat the same point, add new reasons, or answer questions you never asked. The extra words are often an attempt to control how the situation is interpreted. The darker side appears when over-explaining is used to bury the truth beneath complexity. Someone may give so many details that you lose track of the original question. They may overload you with information, hoping confusion will replace suspicion. The story sounds convincing because it is detailed, but the details may distract from what matters most. In human dynamics, this can leave you feeling guilty for asking something simple. You begin wondering whether you are too suspicious, too demanding, or too sensitive. Yet the issue may not be your question. It may be the discomfort your question exposed. Pay attention when the explanation becomes much larger than the choice itself. Sometimes the longest answer is protecting the shortest truth. The reaction leader. The most powerful person is often the one others watch before reacting. In human dynamics, social influence is not always held by the loudest, richest, or most attractive person. It often belongs to the person whose approval quietly decides what feels acceptable. Before others laugh, agree, welcome someone, or reject an idea, they glance at this person for direction. These looks may last only a second, but they reveal the hidden structure of the group. If someone tells a joke and everyone first checks one person's face, that person may control the room's emotional permission. If they smile, others relax. If they remain cold, the group may become distant. Their reaction becomes a silent command. This matters in human dynamics because the person you like may behave differently depending on this hidden leader's response. They may seem interested when you are alone, then become detached around friends. They may laugh at your words privately, but stay quiet when the influential person disapproves. This can reveal that their confidence, loyalty, or attraction is weaker than social pressure. The darker side appears when someone learns to use this position deliberately. They may reward certain people with attention and punish others with silence, mockery, or exclusion. Because everyone watches them, one raised eyebrow can damage someone's status without a direct insult. In relationships, this signal shows whether your partner thinks independently or needs group approval before honoring you. Notice whose face they search after you speak, whose opinion changes their behavior, and whose discomfort suddenly becomes more important than your dignity. Sometimes the person everyone watches is controlling the room without saying a single word. The criticism signal. Repeated criticism often exposes hidden insecurity. In human dynamics, a person may keep attacking the same trait because it touches something unresolved within them. They may criticize your confidence because they feel overlooked, your friendships because they fear replacement, or your appearance because comparison makes them feel inadequate. This does not mean every criticism comes from jealousy or insecurity. Honest feedback can be useful, especially when it is respectful, specific, and focused on behavior. The signal becomes stronger when the criticism is constant, personal, exaggerated, or aimed at qualities that do not harm anyone. Insecure people sometimes reduce others to feel larger. They may mock your goals, question your intelligence, dismiss your achievements, or make small comments that slowly damage your confidence. What sounds like teasing may actually be an attempt to restore their sense of superiority. The emotional danger is that repeated criticism can change how you see yourself. At first, you may defend your choices. Later, you may begin seeking their approval, hiding parts of your personality, or avoiding anything that could trigger another comment. Their insecurity quietly becomes your self-doubt. The darker side appears when criticism is used as control. Someone may lower your confidence so you feel less likely to leave, attract someone else, or challenge their behavior. They may insult you, then offer affection, making relief feel like love. Over time, you begin working harder for the warmth they once gave freely. Notice what they criticize repeatedly and whether it reflects a genuine concern or a threat to their ego. Sometimes the trait they attack most is the trait they fear they cannot match, control, or possess. The second reaction signal. The first reaction may be conditioning, the second may be truth. In human dynamics, people often respond automatically before their real feelings have time to surface. They smile because they were taught to be polite, say, "It's fine to avoid conflict," or laugh because everyone else is laughing. That first response may protect their image, preserve harmony, or hide discomfort. The second reaction is often more revealing. It appears after the social mask slips, a smile fades, their eyes narrow, their voice becomes colder, they change the subject, pull away, or return later with questions they initially pretended not to care about. These small shifts can reveal jealousy, disappointment, attraction, fear, or resentment. This is why timing matters. Someone may congratulate you instantly, then become distant after thinking about your success. They may say they are comfortable with your friendship, then start making sharp comments about that person later. The first response follows what they believe they should feel. The second may reveal what they actually feel. The darker side appears when people become skilled at hiding both reactions. They may delay speaking until they have chosen the safest expression, then reveal their real emotion through punishment, silence, or changed behavior. Instead of admitting jealousy, they become unavailable. Instead of expressing hurt, they make you feel guilty. Do not treat every second reaction as proof, but notice repeated patterns. The truth often appears after the polite answer, once the person believes the moment has passed. Their first reaction may protect the relationship they want you to see. Their second may expose the relationship they are actually experiencing inside. The small detail signal. Remembering small details can signal care, strategy, or both. In human dynamics, someone who recalls your favorite drink, a childhood story, the name of your pet, or something you mentioned weeks ago can make you feel deeply seen. These details create emotional warmth because they suggest your words mattered enough to stay in their mind. Genuine care often shows through memory. A thoughtful person may remember what makes you nervous, what comforts you, or which dates are important to you. They use that knowledge to support you, make you feel safe, and show that the connection is not one-sided. Their attention feels natural because it is matched by consistency, respect, and emotional presence. But memory can also be strategic. Some people study small details because information gives them influence. They learn what makes you feel loved, what scares you, what you are insecure about, and what you are desperate to hear. At first, this can feel like rare emotional understanding. You may believe you have finally met someone who notices what others miss. The darker side appears when those details are later used to control you. They may repeat your favorite words to gain trust, bring up private pain during arguments, or use your fears to keep you from leaving. What once felt like tenderness becomes emotional leverage. This is why remembering alone is not proof of love. Pay attention to how the information is used. Care protects what it learns. Strategy exploits what it learns. The same detail that makes you feel understood can also reveal how closely someone is studying where you are most emotionally exposed. The sudden politeness signal. Sudden politeness after conflict may mean maturity, emotional withdrawal, or hidden resentment. In human dynamics, a sharp change from warmth and natural conversation to careful, formal language can reveal that something beneath the surface has shifted. The person may still be respectful, but the emotional closeness that once lived inside their words may be disappearing. Sometimes this politeness is healthy. After an argument, a mature person may control their emotions, choose their words carefully, and avoid saying something harmful. Their calmer tone creates space for understanding. They remain willing to listen, discuss the problem, and rebuild the connection once both people feel settled. But politeness can also become emotional distance disguised as peace. Someone who once used affectionate names may suddenly address you plainly. Their messages become shorter, their voice becomes controlled, and their responses feel technically kind but emotionally empty. They are no longer arguing because they may no longer feel safe, hopeful, or invested enough to fight. The darker side appears when politeness hides resentment. Instead of expressing anger honestly, the person becomes unusually pleasant while quietly keeping score. They may say everything is fine, yet withdraw affection, delay replies, cancel plans, or punish you through cold cooperation. Their words remain respectful, but their behavior begins communicating rejection. This can be confusing because there is nothing openly hostile to confront. You feel the distance but struggle to prove it. When you ask what is wrong, they may point to their calm behavior and make you feel unreasonable for noticing the change. Pay attention to whether the politeness is followed by honest conversation and repair. Maturity calms conflict while preserving connection. Withdrawal calms conflict by removing emotion. Resentment stays polite while quietly preparing punishment, distance, or departure. The boundary test. People often test limits with small acts of disrespect. In human dynamics, serious mistreatment rarely begins at its worst. It often starts with a cruel joke, an ignored request, a broken promise, or a comment designed to see how much discomfort you will tolerate. The act may look minor, but your reaction gives the person important information about where your boundaries stand. If you laugh to avoid tension, stay silent to keep the peace, or accept a weak excuse, they may learn that disrespect carries little cost. What began as one careless moment can slowly become a pattern. The jokes become sharper, the promises become emptier, and your feelings become easier to dismiss. Not every mistake is a calculated test. Good people can speak thoughtlessly, misunderstand limits, or hurt someone without intending to. The difference appears after the boundary is explained. A respectful person listens, takes responsibility, and adjusts their behavior. Someone testing control may argue, mock your reaction, call you sensitive, or repeat the same act in a slightly different form. The darker side appears when each violation prepares you for something worse. Small disrespect can lower your expectations gradually, making behavior you once rejected feel normal. You begin explaining their actions, doubting your standards, and feeling guilty for objecting. By the time the behavior becomes openly harmful, you may already be trained to minimize it. This is why early moments matter. Watch what happens when you calmly say no, express discomfort, or ask for respect. The act itself reveals something, but the response to your boundary reveals more. Someone who values you may dislike being corrected, yet still care about the effect they had. Someone seeking control will treat your boundary as an obstacle to weaken, challenge, or punish. The no-benefit treatment signal. How someone treats people who offer them no benefit can predict how they may later treat you. In human dynamics, charm is easiest when there is something to gain. A person may appear patient, generous, and respectful towards someone they want to impress, while becoming cold, dismissive, or rude toward people they consider unimportant. Watch how they treat servers, cleaners, drivers, strangers, older people, or anyone with less social power. These interactions reveal how they behave when admiration is no longer necessary. If they interrupt, insult, ignore, or embarrass people who cannot help them, their kindness may be selective rather than genuine. This signal matters because relationships change. At the beginning, you may be exciting, attractive, useful, or emotionally valuable to them. They may give attention freely because they want your affection, but over time, familiarity grows. Your ability to impress them may fade, and your needs may become less convenient. The darker side appears when respect depends entirely on usefulness. Once you stop providing praise, access, comfort, money, status, or constant emotional support, their treatment may change. The warmth disappears, patience becomes irritation, and affection begins to feel conditional. You may suddenly experience the same coldness you once watched them direct at others. People often believe they will be treated differently because the connection feels special. But repeated behavior toward others is rarely meaningless. It reveals the rules hidden beneath the charm. Notice whether their respect remains present when nobody is watching and nothing can be gained. Genuine character does not require an audience or reward. Someone who only values useful people may eventually decide that your worth also depends on what you continue providing. The loyalty claim signal. Constant claims of loyalty may hide inner doubt. In human dynamics, a person who repeatedly says, "I would never betray you," "I am completely loyal," or "you never need to worry about me," may sound deeply reassuring. But when loyalty is announced more often than it is demonstrated, the words can reveal an inner conflict they are trying to silence. Genuine loyalty is usually visible through consistency. It appears in honest communication, respected boundaries, dependable behavior, and the choices someone makes when temptation or pressure appears. A secure partner may express commitment, but they do not need to constantly advertise their character. Their actions quietly support what they say. Repeated declarations can sometimes come from anxiety rather than dishonesty. Someone who was falsely accused in a past relationship may overstate their loyalty because they fear being misunderstood again. They may be trying to make you feel safe or calm their own fear of abandonment. This is why one statement proves nothing. The pattern surrounding it matters. The darker side appears when loyalty claims are used to discourage questions. A person may talk constantly about trust, so that any concern you raise feels like betrayal. They may demand complete faith while hiding messages, changing stories, or protecting suspicious relationships. Instead of answering clearly, They remind you how loyal they supposedly are. This can make you feel guilty for noticing contradictions. You begin doubting your instincts because their words sound so certain. Yet someone who is truly trustworthy does not require you to ignore reality to preserve their image. Pay attention to whether loyalty is supported by transparency when it becomes inconvenient. Sometimes the person speaking most loudly about faithfulness is not convincing you. They are trying to convince themselves that their private choices still match the person they claim to be. The power of silence. Silence gains power when others expect explanation or approval seeking. In human dynamics, people often assume that the person who explains the most cares the most, while the person who remains quiet holds less emotion. But silence can completely shift the balance of an interaction, especially when someone expects you to defend yourself, chase them, or prove your worth. When you stop over-explaining, the other person loses access to the reassurance they expected. They may have assumed you would send another message, apologize for a boundary, or keep arguing until they felt satisfied. Your silence interrupts that pattern. It forces them to sit with their own behavior instead of using your reaction to avoid it. Healthy silence can protect emotional control. It gives you time to think, prevents impulsive words, and creates space before a difficult conversation. A mature person uses silence temporarily, then returns with honesty. The silence is not punishment, it is preparation for clearer communication. The darker side appears when silence becomes a weapon. Someone may ignore messages, withdraw affection, or refuse to speak until you become anxious enough to surrender. They know uncertainty can be more painful than an argument. Without an explanation, you begin replaying every moment, questioning your actions, and searching for ways to restore their attention. This becomes especially powerful when you depend on their approval. The longer they remain silent, the more tempted you feel to abandon your boundary just to end the discomfort. Pay attention to what the silence is demanding from you. Silence used for reflection eventually creates clarity. Silence used for control creates fear, confusion, and desperate approval seeking. Sometimes the quietest person is not powerless at all. They are controlling the entire emotional exchange by refusing to give the response everyone expects. The question collector. The person asking questions may be gathering information while revealing very little. In human dynamics, curiosity can feel flattering because it creates the impression that someone genuinely wants to understand you. They ask about your past, fears, goals, friendships, family, and emotional wounds. You begin opening up because the attention feels rare and intimate. Healthy curiosity is mutual. A sincere person asks questions, but they also answer yours. They share their own experiences, admit uncertainty, and allow themselves to be known. The connection grows through balanced vulnerability, not one-sided emotional exposure. The signal becomes stronger when someone keeps the focus on you while avoiding personal details about themselves. They may redirect your questions, give vague replies, or reveal only carefully chosen stories. You leave the conversation feeling deeply seen, yet you still know very little about who they truly are. This imbalance can create false intimacy. Because you have shared private information, you may feel closer than the relationship actually is. The other person now understands what comforts you, what triggers you, what you fear losing, and what kind of attention makes you feel special. The darker side appears when that knowledge becomes strategy. They may use your insecurities to influence decisions, repeat your values to appear compatible, or shape their personality around what you want. Later, the same details may be used during conflict, pressure, or emotional withdrawal. Pay attention to whether curiosity comes with equal openness. Questions can build trust, but they can also collect leverage. Someone who knows everything about you while remaining emotionally hidden may not be creating closeness. They may be studying the safest way to enter your life without giving you enough information to judge theirs. The invisible understanding signal. People trust those who understand them without making them feel studied. In human dynamics, the strongest connection often comes from feeling recognized without feeling examined. Someone notices your mood, remembers what matters to you, and responds in a way that feels natural rather than calculated. This kind of understanding creates safety because it does not force you to explain every emotion. They can sense when you need space, when you are pretending to be fine, or when a joke has touched something deeper. Their attention feels gentle, not invasive. Healthy understanding grows from listening, consistency, and emotional awareness. The person does not interrogate you or act as though they are solving a puzzle. They simply pay attention. They learn your patterns over time while still allowing you to remain complex, private, and capable of surprising them. The signal changes when someone appears to understand you too quickly. They may finish your sentences, describe your wounds with unusual accuracy, or make you feel as though nobody has ever seen you this clearly. That intensity can feel irresistible, especially if you have spent years feeling misunderstood. The darker side appears when understanding becomes surveillance. A person may study your reactions, insecurities, and attachment patterns so they can predict what will keep you close. They know when to offer warmth, when to withdraw, and which words will reach your deepest fears. This is why true understanding should make you feel freer, not easier to control. Someone who cares uses what they learn to protect your dignity. Someone strategic uses it to shape your behavior. Pay attention to how you feel after being understood. Genuine connection leaves you calm, respected, and more yourself. Manipulative understanding can feel thrilling at first, then slowly make you feel watched, predictable, and emotionally exposed. The misunderstanding test. Real confidence rarely needs to correct every misunderstanding. In human dynamics, secure people do not panic each time someone sees them imperfectly. They may explain what matters, but they do not chase every opinion, defend every detail, or force others to view them exactly as they view themselves. This confidence comes from having a stable sense of identity. When someone knows their values, intentions, and character, one mistaken impression does not destroy them. They understand that not every disagreement is a threat, and not every misunderstanding requires a courtroom-style defense. Insecure people often react differently. A small comment can trigger a long explanation. They may repeatedly insist they are kind, loyal, honest, or emotionally mature. Instead of letting their behavior speak, they work hard to control your interpretation of them. This matters in human dynamics because constant correction can become exhausting. You may feel unable to express concern without being dragged into a debate about their character. The original issue disappears while they focus on proving that your perception is wrong. The darker side appears when someone treats every misunderstanding as an attack that must be defeated. They may pressure you to withdraw your feelings, deny what you noticed, or apologize for interpreting their behavior honestly. Their need to protect their image becomes more important than understanding your experience. Over time, you may stop raising concerns because every conversation turns into a battle over who they are. You begin doubting your own reactions just to preserve peace. Pay attention to whether someone can tolerate being misunderstood briefly while discussing the real issue. Confidence seeks clarity without demanding control. Insecurity needs immediate correction because even a small crack in the image feels dangerous. The advice rejection signal. People may reject advice because accepting it means admitting fault. In human dynamics, someone can hear a useful suggestion and still resist it. not because the advice is wrong, but because following it would force them to face something uncomfortable about themselves. Advice often touches pride. When you suggest better communication, clearer boundaries, or a change in behavior, the other person may hear more than the words. They may hear, "You handled this badly," "You were wrong," or "You are not as mature as you believe." Instead of considering the solution, they defend their identity. This is why simple advice can trigger anger, sarcasm, excuses, or sudden distance. The person may attack your tone, question your motives, or remind you of your own mistakes. These reactions move attention away from the issue and protect them from feeling exposed. Not every rejection means arrogance. Some people need time before they can accept difficult feedback. Others may feel controlled if advice is given without care or permission. The real signal appears when someone rejects every suggestion that requires responsibility, while accepting advice that confirms what they already believe. The darker side appears when they understand the advice but refuse it because change would reduce their control. They may continue harmful behavior, then blame the consequences on you, timing, stress, or circumstances. Your solution threatens the system that benefits them. Over time, you may stop offering honest feedback because every attempt becomes conflict. You begin managing problems alone while they remain protected from accountability. Pay attention to what happens after emotions settle. A mature person may resist at first, then reflect and adjust. Someone trapped by pride keeps rejecting the advice because the problem feels easier to preserve than the fault feels to admit. The private processing signal. Someone who looks unaffected may simply process emotions privately. In human dynamics, people often mistake quietness for indifference. A person may hear painful news, face rejection, or experience conflict without showing much on their face. Their calm exterior can make it seem as though nothing reached them, but the emotion may still be moving deeply underneath. Some people process feelings internally before they can speak about them. They need silence, distance, or time to understand what they feel. Instead of crying, arguing, or asking for reassurance immediately, they may become still. Their emotions appear later through changed behavior, sleeplessness, unusual withdrawal, or a conversation that comes long after the moment has passed. This can be difficult for a more expressive partner. When one person reacts openly and the other stays calm, the quiet person may seem cold or uncaring. The expressive partner may push harder, raise their voice, or demand proof of emotion, which can make the private processor retreat even more. The darker side appears when someone deliberately uses emotional stillness to create uncertainty. They may hide every reaction so you cannot tell what affects them, what they want, or whether they care. This can leave you overanalyzing every word while they keep emotional control. The difference is revealed through what happens later. A genuine private processor eventually returns, explains what they felt, and engages with the issue. A manipulative person stays unreadable while expecting you to chase, guess, and adjust. Do not confuse quietness with emptiness. Some of the deepest reactions happen where nobody can see them. But emotional privacy should still lead to communication, not permanent confusion. The repeated joke. Signal. Repeated jokes often hide beliefs people fear saying openly. In human dynamics, humor can become a safe disguise for jealousy, resentment, attraction, insecurity, or control. A person may keep joking that you will leave them, cheat on them, become too successful, or find someone better. They laugh, but the same subject keeps returning because something inside them does not feel settled. A single joke may mean nothing. The signal becomes stronger when the humor is repeated, aimed at the same insecurity, or followed by a careful look at your reaction. The person may be testing whether you will reassure them, defend yourself, or accept a disrespectful idea without protest. Humor gives people emotional protection. If you respond seriously, they can say, "I was only joking." If you laugh, they may take your reaction as permission to repeat it. This allows them to express a hidden belief without fully owning it. Sometimes the joke reveals fear. Someone who repeatedly jokes about being abandoned may genuinely fear losing you. Someone who jokes about your friendships may feel threatened but ashamed to admit jealousy. In healthy relationships, these hidden feelings can be discussed honestly once recognized. The darker side appears when jokes are used to slowly damage confidence. A person may mock your appearance, intelligence, goals, or desirability, then accuse you of lacking humor when you feel hurt. Repetition can make the insult feel normal and your discomfort feel unreasonable. Pay attention to the subject that keeps returning. Jokes often circle around emotions people are unwilling to name. What someone repeatedly makes funny may be what they secretly believe, fear, envy, or want you to start believing about yourself. The small mistake test. People study your response to small mistakes before sharing bigger truths. In human dynamics, a person may admit something minor first to see whether you respond with understanding, anger, ridicule, or punishment. They are not only confessing the mistake, they are measuring how emotionally safe honesty feels around you. This may begin with something simple. They tell you they forgot a plan, misunderstood a message, or made a poor decision. Your reaction becomes information. If you listen calmly, ask questions, and separate the mistake from their entire character, they may feel safer revealing something deeper later. People often hide difficult truths because they fear the consequences of being fully known. They may worry that honesty will lead to rejection, humiliation, control, or abandonment. Small admissions become emotional tests. They want to know whether your love can survive imperfection before exposing something that carries more shame. The signal becomes darker when the test is not about safety but tolerance. Some people admit minor wrongdoing to discover how much you will excuse. If you overlook every broken promise, suspicious detail, or disrespectful act, they may learn that larger betrayals can also be minimized. They may even offer partial truths to reduce suspicion. By confessing to something small, they appear honest while hiding something more serious. Your relief becomes their protection. Pay attention to what follows the confession. A sincere person becomes more open, accountable, and careful with your trust. A manipulative person uses your forgiveness as evidence that consequences are weak. How you respond matters, but so does what they do afterward. Emotional safety should encourage deeper honesty, not teach someone that your compassion can be used to expand the limits of what you will endure. The compliment signal. Compliments reveal values, envy, desire, or self-image. In human dynamics, praise is rarely random. What someone notices about you often reflects what matters deeply to them, what they wish they possessed, what attracts them, or how they want to be seen. A person who constantly praises your confidence may admire strength because they struggle to feel secure. Someone who focuses on your appearance may be driven strongly by attraction, status, or public image. A person who compliments your kindness may value emotional safety because they rarely experience it. Their praise quietly reveals the qualities their mind is searching for. Healthy compliments feel specific, natural, and free from pressure. They make you feel appreciated without creating a hidden obligation. The person may admire your beauty, intelligence, discipline, humor, or compassion while still respecting the complete person behind those qualities. The signal becomes darker when a compliment contains comparison. Someone may say, "You are much smarter than my ex," or "I wish I had your confidence." The praise sounds warm, but it may carry unresolved resentment, competition, or insecurity. Over time, admiration can turn into criticism, if the quality they praised begins making them feel inferior. Compliments can also reveal self-image. People often praise qualities they want associated with themselves. By admiring your success, taste, or social status, they may be showing the identity they hope to build through being close to you. The darker side appears when praise is used as emotional bait. A manipulative person may discover what you feel insecure about, then offer the exact compliments you have always wanted to hear. The words create powerful closeness because they touch an unmet emotional need. Pay attention to what they praise repeatedly and what happens when that quality no longer benefits them. Sometimes admiration celebrates who you are. Sometimes it quietly reveals what they want, envy, or hope to control. The mirroring signal. Mirroring words, posture, or pace can build unconscious rapport. In human dynamics, this happens when someone subtly matches the way you speak, sit, move, or express emotion. You lean forward, and they lean forward moments later. You slow your voice, and their pace softens. You use a certain phrase, and they begin using it too. This creates closeness because the human mind is naturally drawn to familiarity. When someone reflects your behavior, they can feel safer, more similar, and easier to trust. The connection may seem unusually smooth even when neither person understands why. Healthy mirroring often happens naturally. People who feel comfortable together begin matching each other's expressions, energy, and rhythm without planning it. Their bodies move in harmony because attention and empathy are present. Over time, couples may even adopt similar jokes, gestures, and speaking habits. Deliberate mirroring can also improve communication when used respectfully. Matching someone's calm tone may help them relax. Reflecting their excitement can make them feel validated. The key is subtlety, because obvious imitation feels artificial and may create discomfort. The darker side appears when mirroring is used to manufacture false compatibility. Someone may copy your interests, opinions, values, and emotional style to become exactly what you have been searching for. They do not simply match your posture, they mirror your identity. This can create intense trust very quickly. You may feel as though you have found someone who thinks, feels, and dreams exactly like you, but once the connection is secure, their borrowed personality may begin disappearing. Pay attention to whether similarity grows naturally or appears perfectly from the beginning. Genuine rapport reflects you while preserving individuality. Manipulative mirroring studies you, becomes your ideal reflection, and waits until trust is strong enough to reveal what was hidden behind the image. The emotional memory signal. People forget words, but remember how you made them feel. In human dynamics, conversations fade faster than emotions. Someone may forget the exact joke you told, the advice you gave, or the message you sent, yet still remember whether they felt safe, admired, judged, ignored, or emotionally exposed around you. This happens because emotional experiences often leave a deeper mark than language. Words are processed as information, but feelings are connected to trust, danger, acceptance, and belonging. A person may not remember every detail of a date, but they will remember whether they relaxed in your presence or felt pressure to perform. Healthy relationships create emotional memories through consistency. When someone listens without mocking, respects a boundary, or stays kind during conflict, the feeling of safety grows. These moments may seem small, but they shape how the entire connection is remembered. The signal becomes darker when someone uses emotion to overpower reality. A person may lie, break promises, or avoid responsibility, then create intense moments of affection that make the relationship feel special again. The warmth becomes so powerful that it weakens your memory of the harm. This is why emotional highs and lows can become addictive. Pain creates fear, then affection creates relief. Over time, you may remember the relief more strongly than the pattern that caused the pain. The person no longer needs perfect words because the emotional cycle keeps pulling you back. Pay attention to the emotional condition someone repeatedly leaves you in. Do you feel calm, valued, and free to be yourself, or anxious, confused, and desperate for reassurance? Words can be polished, rehearsed, and changed. The feeling left behind often reveals what the relationship is doing to you long after the conversation ends. The interruption signal. Constant interruption may reflect fear of losing control. In human dynamics, someone who repeatedly cuts you off may not simply be impatient. They may feel threatened by where your words are going, afraid that your perspective will weaken theirs, or uncomfortable when they are not directing the emotional flow of the conversation. Healthy conversation requires space. Both people should be able to finish thoughts, explain feelings, and respond without competing to be heard. Occasional interruption can come from excitement, nervousness, or enthusiasm. The signal becomes stronger when one person interrupts, most often during disagreement, accountability, or emotional honesty. They may speak over you before you complete a concern, correct details that do not matter, or answer questions before hearing the full meaning. This keeps the conversation moving at their pace and prevents your message from gaining emotional weight. The darker side appears when interruption becomes a control tactic. By cutting you off repeatedly, they can exhaust you, distort your point, and make you seem confused or overly emotional. They may force you to defend fragments instead of expressing the full issue. Eventually, you may shorten your thoughts, soften your language, or stop speaking altogether. This creates a dangerous imbalance. The person who dominates the conversation begins defining what happened, what matters, and which emotions are allowed. Your silence may then be used as proof that you had nothing valid to say. Pay attention to whether they become more interruptive when your words challenge their image or expose a contradiction. Someone who values understanding may struggle to listen, but will make room when asked. Someone afraid of losing control treats your completed thought as a threat because once you finish speaking, the truth may become harder to redirect. The agreement signal. Someone who never disagrees may be avoiding conflict or quietly planning distance. In human dynamics, constant agreement can feel comforting because it creates the impression of perfect compatibility. They like what you like, support every decision, and rarely challenge your opinions. At first, this can make the connection feel unusually peaceful. Healthy relationships still contain differences. Two people can care deeply for each other while disagreeing about plans, values, boundaries, or expectations. Respectful disagreement shows that both people feel safe enough to remain honest without fearing rejection. The signal becomes stronger when someone agrees too quickly, especially on topics that usually require thought. They may say, "Whatever you want, you are always right," or "It does not matter to me," even when their behavior suggests otherwise. Their silence may not mean peace, it may mean fear, emotional exhaustion, or hidden resentment. Some people avoid disagreement because past conflict taught them that honesty leads to anger, punishment, or abandonment. They protect the relationship by hiding their real thoughts. But what remains unspoken does not disappear. It often returns through distance, passive behavior, delayed resentment, or sudden withdrawal. The darker side appears when agreement is used to avoid emotional investment. A person may stop disagreeing because they have already begun leaving internally. They no longer argue, explain, or fight to be understood because the outcome no longer matters to them. Their calmness feels mature, but their emotional absence is growing. Pay attention to whether agreement comes with genuine engagement. A connected person may compromise, but they still reveal preferences and concerns. Someone planning distance often becomes easy to please because they are no longer building a future. inside the relationship. Sometimes the absence of conflict does not mean harmony. It means one person has stopped bringing their truth into the room. The understanding without trust signal. Understanding someone does not require trusting them. In human dynamics, empathy can become dangerous when it is confused with permission. You may understand why someone fears commitment, hides the truth, becomes jealous, or pulls away after intimacy. Their past may explain the behavior, but explanation does not make the behavior safe. This is where many people become emotionally trapped. They discover the wound behind the pattern and begin protecting the person from consequences. Instead of asking whether the relationship is healthy, they focus on why the other person acts that way. Compassion slowly replaces judgment, and understanding becomes a reason to stay. Healthy empathy keeps both truth and boundaries alive. You can recognize someone's pain while still refusing dishonesty, disrespect, or emotional instability. You can care about what shaped them without allowing those experiences to shape your life through repeated harm. Trust requires more than insight. It requires consistency, honesty, accountability, and behavior that remains dependable when emotions become difficult. Knowing someone deeply does not prove they will protect you. Sometimes it only helps you predict how they may hurt you. The darker side appears when a person uses their pain as permanent protection from responsibility. Every betrayal has an explanation. Every outburst has a history. Every broken promise becomes something you are expected to understand. If you object, they accuse you of lacking compassion. Over time, you may feel cruel for protecting yourself. Their suffering becomes more important than the damage they cause. Pay attention to whether understanding leads to change or only endless excuses. Empathy can help you see the person clearly. Trust should only grow when their actions repeatedly prove that seeing them clearly does not require ignoring danger. The projection signal. People sometimes reveal themselves through the motives they assign to others. In human dynamics, someone may accuse you of seeking attention, hiding messages, using people, or planning to leave, even when your behavior gives little reason for suspicion. Their accusation may say more about the fears, desires, or habits inside them than about anything you have done. This happens because people often interpret others through their own inner world. A person who lies easily may assume everyone is hiding something. Someone who uses affection to gain control may suspect kindness always has a hidden price. A partner who is emotionally pulling away may become obsessed with the idea that you are doing the same. Not every accusation is projection. Sometimes concern is based on real behavior. The signal becomes stronger when the claim appears repeatedly without evidence, changes whenever you answer it, or closely matches actions the accuser later reveals in themselves. The darker side appears when projection becomes a distraction. Someone may accuse you first, so you spend all your energy defending yourself. While you explain where you were, who you spoke to, or what you meant, their own behavior escapes attention. The accusation creates confusion and places them in the position of judge. This can slowly damage your confidence. You may begin proving your innocence constantly, changing harmless behavior and questioning motives you never had. Their inner conflict becomes a case you are forced to answer. Pay attention to what someone repeatedly assumes about other people. The motives they see everywhere may reflect the motives they understand best. Sometimes an accusation is not evidence of what you are doing. It is an accidental confession of what they fear, desire, or quietly recognize within themselves. The rushed trust signal. The faster someone demands trust, the slower you should give it. In human dynamics, trust that is requested too early can feel romantic because it creates the illusion of instant closeness. Someone may say, "You should know I would never hurt you. Why do you not trust me yet?" Or, "I have already told you everything." The pressure makes caution feel like rejection. Healthy trust grows through repeated proof. It forms when words match actions, boundaries are respected, and behavior remains consistent over time. A trustworthy person may want closeness, but they understand that emotional safety cannot be forced. They allow you to observe them without making you feel guilty for moving carefully. The signal becomes stronger when someone treats normal questions as insults. They may become offended when you ask for clarity, accuse you of bringing past pain into the relationship, or demand loyalty before giving you enough information to judge their character. The darker side appears when urgency is used to bypass your instincts. A person may reveal intense feelings quickly, share private stories, or make future promises before genuine trust exists. This emotional speed can make the relationship feel rare and destined, while reducing the time you have to notice contradictions. Once you are emotionally invested, they may use the trust you gave as protection. Every concern becomes proof that you are insecure. Every question becomes betrayal. You are expected to ignore discomfort because they declared themselves trustworthy from the beginning. Pay attention to how someone responds to patience. Genuine people may feel disappointed, but they continue showing consistency. Manipulative people become frustrated because time threatens the image they are trying to create. Real trust does not fear careful observation. False trust needs immediate access before the truth becomes visible. The charm signal. Charm may be warmth, social skill, or a way to lower defenses. In human dynamics, a charming person can make you feel unusually comfortable within minutes. They know how to hold eye contact, use humor, offer compliments, and create the feeling that you are the most interesting person in the room. Genuine charm often comes from confidence, empathy, and strong communication. The person listens well, adapts naturally, and makes others feel included without demanding anything in return. Their warmth remains consistent even when they are not trying to impress you. The signal becomes stronger when the charm feels unusually intense, fast, or perfectly matched to what you want. They may seem to understand your needs immediately, say exactly the right things, and create emotional closeness before trust has had time to grow. The darker side appears when charm is used to bypass judgment. A person may overwhelm you with attention, so you stop noticing contradictions, rushed intimacy, or ignored boundaries. Because the interaction feels exciting, you may confuse emotional intensity with character. Charm can also create social protection. If everyone finds the person likable, you may question your own discomfort when their private behavior changes. They may be warm in public, cold in private, then rely on their reputation to make your concerns sound unbelievable. Pay attention to what happens when charm no longer works. A genuinely warm person remains respectful when you disagree, slow the relationship down, or say no. Someone using charm as a tool may become impatient, distant, insulting, or suddenly uninterested. Charm reveals presentation, not intention. It shows how someone makes people feel, but not always why they are doing it. The most dangerous charm does not feel threatening. It feels like safety arriving before you have had time to decide whether it is real. The teasing power signal. Power appears in who can tease whom without consequences. In human dynamics and social groups, teasing may look harmless, but it often reveals the hidden hierarchy beneath the laughter. The person who can make jokes about others without being challenged usually holds more social protection, confidence, or influence than the person expected to laugh along. Healthy teasing is mutual. Both people can joke, both feel safe, and either person can say when something has gone too far. The humor creates closeness because respect remains present underneath it. Nobody is repeatedly embarrassed, silenced, or forced to pretend the joke did not hurt. The signal becomes stronger when teasing only moves in one direction. One person mocks your appearance, intelligence, habits, past, or insecurities, yet becomes offended when you respond similarly. Their jokes are treated as harmless, while yours are called disrespectful. This unequal freedom reveals who is allowed power and who is expected to absorb discomfort. The darker side appears when teasing becomes disguised humiliation. Someone may expose private details in front of others, target the same insecurity repeatedly, or use laughter to lower your social status. If you object, they accuse you of being sensitive, ruining the mood, or lacking confidence. This creates a trap. If you laugh, the disrespect continues. If you defend yourself, your reaction becomes the new joke. The group may even protect the person with more influence because challenging them feels socially risky. Pay attention to who is allowed to cause discomfort and who must hide it. Humor should not require one person to surrender dignity so everyone else can relax. Sometimes the person making everyone laugh is not simply funny. They are testing how much power the group will let them exercise over someone who cannot safely laugh back. The no response signal. A person's response to no reveals their real character. In human dynamics, kindness is easiest when someone is getting what they want. The deeper test begins when you refuse a request, slow the relationship down, protect your time, or set a boundary they did not expect. A respectful person may feel disappointed, but they still accept your decision. They may ask for clarity, express how they feel, or suggest another option, yet they do not punish you for having limits. Their respect remains present even when the answer does not benefit them. The signal becomes stronger when someone reacts with pressure, guilt, anger, or sudden coldness. They may call you selfish, question your feelings, withdraw affection, or act as though your boundary is proof that you do not care. The goal is to make saying no feel more painful than giving in. This can be emotionally confusing because the person may have seemed patient and loving before, but their warmth may have depended on your cooperation. The moment you resist, the hidden conditions behind their kindness become visible. The darker side appears when no is treated as the beginning of negotiation rather than the end of consent. They may keep asking, change tactics, involve other people, or wait until you are tired enough to surrender. Each refusal becomes something they try to weaken. Over time, you may stop saying no because you fear the reaction more than the request itself. That is when control begins replacing connection. Pay attention to what happens after your boundary is clear. Character is not only revealed by how someone treats you when you agree, it is revealed by whether they still respect your dignity when your answer denies them access, attention, comfort, or control. The emergency pressure signal. Repeated emergencies may be used to block careful thinking. In human dynamics, urgency can make ordinary requests feel impossible to question. Someone may suddenly need money, immediate reassurance, a rushed decision, or instant forgiveness. Everything feels serious, emotional, and time-sensitive, leaving you little space to think. Real emergencies happen, and caring partners sometimes need quick support. The signal becomes stronger when every crisis seems to arrive exactly when you set a boundary, ask for clarity, or begin pulling away. The urgency shifts attention from the original issue and places you back in the role of rescuer. Under pressure, people rely more on emotion than judgment. You may agree to something you would normally refuse because there is no time to reflect. Fear, guilt, and compassion begin controlling the decision. The person creating the crisis may know this, even if they never admit it. The darker side appears when emergencies become a pattern of control. Each time you question their behavior, something worse suddenly happens. They become ill, lose something important, face a dramatic conflict, or claim nobody else can help. Your concern replaces your anger, and accountability disappears. Over time, you may feel constantly responsible for preventing disaster. You stop examining contradictions because every conversation becomes a crisis. Your nervous system remains activated, making calm judgment harder and emotional dependence stronger. Pay attention to whether the emergency leads to clear facts, practical action, and shared responsibility. Genuine crises eventually create clarity. Manipulated crises keep returning, remain vague, and demand that you act before you understand. When someone repeatedly needs you to decide while afraid, guilty, or rushed, the urgency itself may be the method. The crisis does not just demand help. It prevents you from noticing what you might see if you had enough time to think. The boundary punishment signal. Anyone who punishes boundaries benefits from your lack of them. In human dynamics, a healthy boundary protects your time, privacy, comfort, values, and emotional safety. It does not control the other person. It simply explains what you will accept and what you will not. A respectful partner may not always like your boundary, but they can still honor it. They may ask questions, express disappointment, or need time to adjust. What matters is that they do not make you suffer for protecting yourself. The signal becomes stronger when a simple boundary triggers anger, guilt, silence, mockery, threats, or sudden withdrawal. Someone may accuse you of being selfish, difficult, cold, or unloving because you said no, asked for space, or refused to tolerate disrespect. Their reaction reveals that your limits interfere with something they expected to receive from you. The darker side appears when punishment trains you to abandon your own boundaries. Each time you speak up, affection disappears. Each time you protect your time, conflict begins. Eventually, you may stop saying what you need because peace feels easier than another emotional consequence. This is how control grows quietly. The person does not always need to demand obedience directly. They only need to make independence painful enough that you begin restricting yourself. Pay attention to whether your boundary creates discussion or retaliation. A caring person may struggle with your limit, but they still recognize your right to have one. A controlling person treats your boundary as betrayal because your freedom reduces their access. When someone repeatedly punishes self-protection, they are not asking for closeness. They are asking for a relationship where their comfort matters more than your consent, dignity, and emotional safety. The reassurance disguised as honesty signal. People may ask for honesty while secretly wanting reassurance. In human dynamics, someone may say, "Tell me the truth," but what they really hope to hear is something that protects their confidence, calms their fear, or confirms that the relationship is safe. The question sounds open, yet only one answer feels emotionally acceptable to them. This often appears in questions about attraction, loyalty, comparison, or commitment. They may ask whether you still find them desirable, whether someone else is better, or whether you have ever thought about leaving. On the surface, they are inviting truth. Underneath, they may be asking you to remove an insecurity they cannot settle alone. Healthy reassurance is normal. Everyone sometimes needs comfort, especially during vulnerable moments. The signal becomes stronger when honesty is requested, but any answer that contains uncertainty, complexity, or discomfort is punished. The person may become angry, withdraw, accuse you of cruelty, or insist that you answered incorrectly. The darker side appears when the demand for honesty becomes a trap. You are encouraged to speak freely, then your words are saved, repeated, and used against you later. Over time, you learn to give the safest answer rather than the truest one. This creates false intimacy. The relationship appears honest, but both people are protecting emotional landmines. One asks questions they cannot tolerate hearing answered, while the other edits reality to prevent conflict. Pay attention to what happens after the truth is given. A person seeking honesty may feel hurt, but they remain curious and grounded. A person seeking reassurance keeps pushing until the answer removes their fear. Sometimes, be honest with me does not mean tell me what is real. It means tell me the version that lets me feel secure again. The absence effect. To understand a group, notice whose absence changes its behavior. In human dynamics and social circles, the true structure of a group often becomes clearer when one person leaves the room. Voices become louder, jokes become bolder, hidden opinions appear, or tension suddenly disappears. The missing person may have been controlling more than anyone openly admitted. A healthy leader can make others feel safer, more organized, and more confident. When they leave, the group may become uncertain because their presence provided direction. This influence is not always negative. Some people naturally create calm, inclusion, and emotional stability. The signal becomes stronger when everyone's personality changes around one individual. People may become quieter, more careful, or overly agreeable when that person is present. Once they leave, the group begins speaking honestly, laughing freely, or sharing complaints they were afraid to mention earlier. In human dynamics, this can reveal hidden pressure. Your partner may behave warmly toward you alone, but become distant around a dominant friend, parent, or social leader. Their affection, opinions, and boundaries may change depending on whose approval is nearby. The darker side appears when one person's absence feels like relief. Everyone relaxes, stops monitoring their words, and becomes more like themselves. This suggests the group may be organized around fear, judgment, or emotional control rather than genuine respect. It can also reveal hidden loyalty. If people begin insulting someone the moment they leave, the group's closeness may be built on performance and convenience. Pay attention to what becomes possible when a person is gone. Sometimes the most influential member is not the one speaking the most. It is the one whose presence quietly decides what everyone else is allowed to say, feel, and reveal. The secret sharing signal. Secrets can create false closeness before trust exists. In human dynamics, someone may reveal painful memories, family problems, past betrayals, or private fears very early. The openness feels rare and powerful because you are being shown something hidden from most people. This can create the illusion that the relationship is already deep. You may think, they trust me, and begin sharing your own private experiences in return. Within hours or days, both people may feel emotionally connected even though they have not yet seen how the other behaves under pressure, disappointment, conflict, or responsibility. Genuine vulnerability can strengthen connection, but trust normally needs time, consistency, and proof. Sharing a secret is not the same as demonstrating character. A person can reveal painful truths while still being unreliable, dishonest, or emotionally unsafe. The signal becomes stronger when the disclosure feels rushed or creates pressure for you to match it. They may say, "I have never told anyone this," then wait for you to reveal something equally personal. The exchange begins to feel like intimacy, but it may actually be accelerated exposure. The darker side appears when secrets are used to create emotional debt. Because they trusted you, you may feel obligated to comfort them, stay available, forgive warning signs, or prove that you are different from everyone who hurt them. Your own secrets may later become leverage. The person now knows what shames you, what frightens you, and what could make you stay silent. Pay attention to whether closeness is supported by consistent behavior. Real trust grows slowly enough for both people to remain clear-minded. False closeness arrives quickly, feels unusually intense, and asks you to become emotionally exposed before safety has been earned. The competition signal. Competition may reveal that someone measures their worth against you. In human dynamics, a partner may seem supportive until you receive attention, praise, success, or confidence. Suddenly, the mood changes. Your achievement becomes something they need to match, reduce, question, or quietly surpass. Healthy competition can be playful. Two people may challenge each other, celebrate improvement, and enjoy testing their strengths without damaging the relationship. The signal becomes darker when your success repeatedly makes the other person colder, more critical, or emotionally distant. They may interrupt your good news with their own achievement, compare income, appearance, popularity, intelligence, or past relationships, or remind you of moments when they performed better. Instead of feeling proud of you, they seem threatened by the possibility that you are becoming harder to control or easier for others to admire. This often comes from fragile self-worth. They do not simply ask, "Am I doing well?" They ask, "Am I doing better than you?" Your confidence becomes evidence against their value. Your growth feels like their decline. The darker side appears when competition turns into sabotage. They may discourage your goals, mock your ambition, create conflict before important moments, or withdraw support when you need it most. If you succeed anyway, they may minimize the result or claim they helped create it. Over time, you may begin shrinking yourself to protect the relationship. You stop sharing victories, soften your confidence, or avoid opportunities that might trigger tension. Pay attention to how someone reacts when you shine without them. A loving partner does not need you to become smaller so they can feel significant. When someone constantly turns connection into comparison, they may not be building a life beside you. They may be using you as the scoreboard for their own worth. The pattern recognition signal. Social intelligence notices patterns without treating every clue as proof. In human dynamics, one delayed reply, awkward joke, changed tone, or canceled plan may mean very little. People get tired, distracted, anxious, and overwhelmed. The danger begins when a single clue is turned into a complete story before enough evidence exists. Emotion can make this difficult. When you care deeply about someone, your mind searches for meaning in every detail. A shorter message feels like rejection. A glance towards someone else feels like hidden attraction. A quiet evening feels like emotional withdrawal. Fear fills the spaces where facts are missing. Healthy social intelligence slows this process down. It notices what happened, compares it with the person's normal behavior, and waits to see whether the same pattern returns. It asks whether the behavior appears only during stress, conflict, intimacy, or accountability. One moment raises a question. Repetition begins providing an answer. This does not mean ignoring intuition. Instinct can notice contradictions before the conscious mind explains them. But intuition becomes more reliable when supported by consistent behavior, context, and honest communication. The darker side appears when suspicion becomes certainty without proof. You may accuse, monitor, test, or emotionally punish someone for a story created by anxiety. This can damage trust and make ordinary behavior feel dangerous. The opposite is also risky. Some people dismiss every warning sign separately, so they never face the pattern formed by all of them together. Pay attention without rushing to judgment. A clue deserves awareness, not immediate conviction. Social intelligence lives between blindness and paranoia. It sees what repeats, remains open to other explanations, and lets patterns reveal what isolated moments cannot prove. The incomplete anger signal. Anger may be real even when its explanation is incomplete. In human dynamics, someone can genuinely feel upset while still misunderstanding what is actually driving the emotion. They may claim the problem is a late reply, a canceled plan, or one careless comment, but the reaction may be carrying deeper fear, jealousy, shame, or resentment. This is why the size of the anger sometimes seems larger than the event. The immediate problem may only be the final trigger. Beneath it could be months of feeling ignored, replaced, powerless, or unimportant. The anger is real, but the reason being spoken may only describe the surface. Healthy emotional awareness allows a person to pause and look deeper. They may first react strongly, then later admit, "It was not only about tonight. I felt afraid that I did not matter to you." This kind of honesty turns anger into useful information and creates a chance for real understanding. The signal becomes darker when anger is used to hide the true issue permanently. Someone may accuse you of one small mistake because admitting jealousy, insecurity, or guilt would make them feel exposed. They keep defending the explanation that protects their pride, even when it does not match the intensity of their reaction. This can leave you trying to solve the wrong problem. You apologize, change your behavior, and offer reassurance, yet the anger keeps returning because the deeper wound remains untouched. Pay attention to whether the explanation fits the pattern. A single event may trigger anger, but repeated reactions often point towards something larger. Sometimes the emotion is honest, while the story attached to it is incomplete, distorted, or designed to hide what the person is not ready to confess. The defensive self-story signal. Defensiveness often appears when a question threatens someone's self-story. In human dynamics, people build identities around being loyal, kind, mature, honest, or misunderstood. When a question challenges that identity, they may react as though their entire character is under attack. You may ask something simple, such as why they changed their story, ignored a boundary, or spoke harshly. Instead of answering directly, they become angry, insulted, or unusually emotional. The reaction may be less about the question and more about what the question forces them to consider. Healthy people can feel defensive and still return to the issue. They may need time, but they eventually explain, listen, and accept that good people can still make harmful choices. Their self-image is strong enough to survive correction. The signal becomes darker when defensiveness replaces accountability completely. The person may attack your tone, question your motives, mention your past mistakes, or accuse you of trying to make them look bad. The original concern disappears while you are forced to defend your right to ask it. This can make you feel guilty for noticing contradictions. You begin softening every question, choosing perfect words, and preparing for emotional backlash before raising anything difficult. Their self-story becomes something you are expected to protect. The deeper problem is that some people need to believe they are innocent more than they need to understand the harm they caused. Any evidence against that identity feels dangerous. Pay attention to whether defensiveness eventually becomes reflection. A secure person may resist the question before facing it. Someone trapped inside their self-story keeps fighting the question because answering honestly could destroy the version of themselves they need you to believe. The everyone agrees signal. Everyone agrees is often hidden social pressure. In human dynamics, this phrase can make one person's opinion feel like a group verdict. Instead of saying, "I think you are wrong," someone may claim that friends, family, or everyone sees the situation the same way. The goal may be to make disagreement feel embarrassing, irrational, or lonely. People naturally fear social rejection. When we believe an entire group is against us, we become more likely to question ourselves, soften our boundaries, or accept a decision we would normally resist. The phrase creates authority without requiring proof. Sometimes several people genuinely share a concern. Healthy communication names the issue clearly and allows you to hear those opinions directly. The signal becomes stronger when the speaker stays vague, refuses to identify who said what, or uses the supposed group only when they want to win an argument. The darker side appears when imaginary agreement is used to isolate you. A partner may say their friends think you are difficult, their family believes you are controlling, or everyone notices something wrong with you. You may never hear these statements from anyone else, yet the claim begins weakening your confidence. This can make you work harder for acceptance. You change your behavior, apologize unnecessarily, or become afraid of social gatherings because you assume people are secretly judging you. Pay attention to whether everyone can be replaced with real names, facts, and direct conversations. Genuine concern becomes clearer when examined. Manipulative pressure stays vague because vagueness lets one person borrow the authority of an entire group. Sometimes everyone agrees does not mean there is a shared truth. It means one person wants their opinion to feel too powerful, popular, and socially dangerous for you to challenge. The reputation control signal. People who cannot control you may try to control how others see you. In human dynamics, this often begins when someone realizes that guilt, charm, pressure, or emotional withdrawal no longer changes your decisions. If they cannot make you obey privately, they may begin reshaping your image publicly. They may describe you as cold, unstable, selfish, dishonest, or difficult. The story is often built carefully, using selected details that make them appear patient and wounded while making your boundaries look cruel. They may leave out what happened before your reaction and focus only on how you responded. This strategy works because people often judge the version they hear first. Once a negative image is planted, your silence may look like guilt, while your defense may look like aggression. You can become trapped inside a story you did not create. The darker side appears when the person recruits friends, relatives, co-workers, or mutual contacts. They may share private messages, exaggerate conflicts, or present themselves as concerned for your well-being. Their goal is not always to tell the truth. It may be to weaken your support, protect their reputation, and make others pressure you on their behalf. This can leave you feeling socially exposed. People become colder, invitations disappear, and conversations change without explanation. You may begin over-explaining yourself to everyone, desperate to correct an image spreading beyond your control. Pay attention to whether someone respects your privacy after losing influence over you. A mature person may feel hurt, but still speak fairly. A controlling person may turn your independence into evidence against your character. When they cannot control your choices, they may try to control the audience watching you make them. The selective boundary signal. Someone who ignores only your boundaries may understand them perfectly. In human dynamics, a person may claim they are forgetful, confused, or just not good with limits. Yet they somehow respect the boundaries of bosses, friends, strangers, or anyone who might give them real consequences. This selective behavior matters. If they can control their words in public, wait patiently when someone important says no, and avoid crossing lines with people who may leave or confront them, then their problem may not be understanding boundaries. Their problem may be believing yours are optional. Healthy mistakes look different. A caring person may forget once, misunderstand what you meant, or need clarification, but after the boundary is explained, they make visible effort to change. They do not keep repeating the same violation while acting confused each time. The darker side appears when selective disrespect is used to test your power. They cross your limits because they believe your feelings will not create serious consequences. They may apologize, promise change, then repeat the behavior once the tension passes. Each violation teaches them how much you will tolerate. Over time, you may begin explaining yourself more carefully, hoping the perfect wording will finally make them understand. But the issue may never have been your explanation. They may understand exactly what hurts you and continue because your discomfort costs them less than respecting you would. Pay attention to where their self-control appears and where it disappears. Someone who respects every boundary except yours is not necessarily confused. They may simply feel safer disappointing you than disappointing everyone else. That is not misunderstanding. It is a decision about whose limits matter. The public praise signal. Public praise with private disrespect protects appearances while weakening you. In human dynamics, someone may speak highly of you around friends, family, or coworkers, yet become cold, dismissive, or insulting when nobody else is watching. Publicly, they create the image of a loving partner. Privately, they make you feel small. This contrast can be deeply confusing. The praise makes you question whether the private behavior is really as harmful as it feels. You may think, they clearly value me because everyone sees them celebrate you. But public admiration does not erase private disrespect. Healthy praise is consistent with private treatment. A caring person does not need an audience to show patience, kindness, and respect. Their behavior remains stable whether others are watching or not. The darker side appears when public praise becomes reputation protection. If you speak about the private mistreatment, others may struggle to believe you because they have only seen affection. The person's public image makes your experience look exaggerated, unfair, or ungrateful. This can isolate you emotionally. You begin doubting yourself because the version everyone admires is not the version you live with. You may even feel guilty for resenting someone who appears so supportive in public. Over time, the praise can become another form of control. They give you status outside the relationship while quietly damaging your confidence inside it. You become more dependent on their public approval because private warmth is rare. Pay attention to the difference between performance and consistency. Real respect does not disappear when the room empties. Sometimes the sweetest public praise is not proof of love. It is the shield that protects someone from being recognized for how they treat you when no one else can see. The emotional debt signal. Unwanted favors may later become emotional debt. In human dynamics, someone may keep giving you things, solving problems, paying for plans, or offering help you never requested. At first, the behavior can feel generous, thoughtful, and deeply caring. You may believe they are simply trying to make your life easier. Healthy generosity respects choice. A caring person offers help without pressure and accepts your refusal without becoming offended. They do not keep a private record of what they have done or expect access, loyalty, affection, or obedience in return. The signal becomes stronger when the favor is difficult to refuse. They may insist after you say no, act hurt when you hesitate, or do something without asking. Once the favor is accepted, the emotional balance begins to change. You may feel less free to disagree, set limits, or walk away because you now feel indebted. The darker side appears when generosity becomes leverage. During conflict, they remind you of everything they have provided. They may say, "After all I have done for you," as though kindness purchased control over your choices. The favor was never truly free. It was an investment they expected to collect later. This can create guilt so strong that you ignore discomfort. You stay longer, forgive more, or agree to things you do not want because refusing feels ungrateful. Pay attention to whether their kindness leaves you feeling supported or obligated. Real generosity increases freedom. Manipulative generosity creates a silent contract you were never allowed to read. Sometimes the favor you did not ask for becomes the reason they believe you now owe them access to your time, emotions, body, loyalty, or decisions. The information control signal. Whoever controls information can influence the group without holding a title. In human dynamics and social circles, power often belongs to the person who decides what others know, when they learn it, and how the story is presented. They may not appear dominant, yet they quietly shape every relationship around them. Information creates advantage. The person who knows everyone's secrets, conflicts, plans, and weaknesses can predict reactions before others do. They may become the bridge between people, the source everyone depends on, or the voice that explains what really happened. Healthy information sharing creates clarity. A trustworthy person communicates accurately, protects private details, and encourages people to speak directly. They do not use knowledge to make themselves necessary or powerful. The signal becomes stronger when someone filters information selectively. They tell one person only part of a story, leave out important context, or deliver news in a way that produces a specific reaction. By the time people compare accounts, tension may already exist. The darker side appears when information becomes social control. Someone may hide invitations, delay messages, expose private conversations, or pass comments between people to create mistrust. They remain at the center because everyone must return to them for updates, explanations, and reassurance. In human dynamics, this can isolate you. A partner may control what friends know about the relationship, speak for you, or prevent direct conversations that could reveal contradictions. You begin depending on their version of events because other connections have been weakened. Pay attention to who always knows first, speaks for others, and decides which details matter. Influence does not always announce itself through authority. Sometimes it operates quietly through edited stories, withheld facts, and the power to decide what everyone believes before the truth has a chance to enter the room. The provoked reaction signal. Some people provoke reactions to distract from their own behavior. In human dynamics, they may insult you, ignore a boundary, twist your words, or push the same sensitive point until you finally react. The moment you raise your voice, cry, or become angry, the conversation suddenly shifts away from what they did and toward how you responded. This tactic works because visible emotion is easier to judge than hidden provocation. Others may only see your reaction, not the repeated pressure that created it. The person who caused the conflict can then appear calm, reasonable, and wounded while you look unstable. Healthy conflict stays focused on the original issue. Even when emotions rise, both people can return to what happened, take responsibility, and discuss the impact. The signal becomes stronger when one person repeatedly pushes until you break, then acts shocked by the result. The darker side appears when provocation is deliberate. They may learn exactly which words, insecurities, or memories trigger you. During arguments, they use those details to create the strongest possible reaction. Once you respond, they point to your anger as proof that you are the real problem. This can slowly destroy your confidence. You begin fearing your own emotions, apologizing for reactions while their behavior remains unexamined. You may even start believing you are difficult, dramatic, or unsafe. Pay attention to what happened before the reaction. Emotional responsibility still matters, but context matters too. Sometimes the person demanding that everyone focus on your explosion is hoping nobody notices the match they kept striking until the room caught fire. The calmness deception signal. Calmness does not prove honesty, and emotion does not prove guilt. In human dynamics, people often trust the person who appears composed and doubt the person who becomes upset. A steady voice can look truthful, while tears, shaking, or anger can look suspicious. But emotional appearance is not reliable evidence. Some honest people become highly emotional when they feel falsely accused, misunderstood, or afraid of losing someone important. Their reaction may come from stress, not guilt. Others stay calm because they process pressure differently, have rehearsed their story, or feel less emotionally invested. Healthy judgment looks beyond performance. It compares words with facts, checks whether the story remains consistent, and notices whether the person answers direct questions without avoiding the issue. Tone matters. but behavior over time matters more. The signal becomes darker when someone uses calmness as a weapon. They may provoke you privately, then stay composed once others are watching. Your visible distress makes them appear reasonable, while your reaction becomes evidence against you. This can make you doubt yourself. You may think the calmer person must be telling the truth because they seem controlled. Meanwhile, the emotional person is treated as unstable even when their account is accurate. The opposite mistake is also dangerous. Strong emotion can be used to pressure, distract, or avoid accountability. Tears do not automatically prove innocence, just as silence does not prove deception. Pay attention to what can be verified. Honest people can be calm or emotional. Dishonest people can be calm or emotional too. The truth is not always carried by the person with the steadiest voice. Sometimes, the most controlled person in the room simply understands how strongly others confuse composure with credibility. The instant answer signal. Someone demanding instant answers may fear careful thought. In human dynamics, pressure for an immediate response can feel intense because it turns reflection into suspicion. They may say, "Answer me now. Why do you need time?" Or, "If you loved me, you would already know." The urgency makes hesitation look dishonest. Healthy communication allows space. Important questions about commitment, trust, boundaries, money, or the future often deserve thought. A respectful person may want clarity, but they understand that a considered answer is usually more honest than one forced under pressure. The signal becomes stronger when someone becomes anxious or angry the moment you pause. They may interrupt your thinking, repeat the question, or accuse you of hiding something. Their goal may not be truth. It may be control over the timing and emotional direction of the conversation. The darker side appears when instant answers are used to trap you. Under pressure, people are more likely to agree, contradict themselves, or say whatever ends the tension. The other person may later use those rushed words as proof, even though you were never given room to think clearly. This can slowly weaken your judgment. You begin responding from fear rather than honesty, choosing the safest answer instead of the truest one. Over time, they train you to treat their urgency as more important than your understanding. Pay attention to how someone reacts when you say, "I need time to think." A secure person may dislike the delay but still respect it. Someone afraid of careful thought may keep pushing because reflection could reveal contradictions, restore your confidence, or lead you to an answer they cannot control. The vulnerability escape signal. Vulnerability can express truth or escape accountability. In human dynamics, emotional openness often creates closeness because it allows someone to reveal fear, shame, pain, or insecurity. When used honestly, vulnerability helps both people understand what lies beneath harmful behavior. A person may admit they are afraid of abandonment, ashamed of a mistake, or struggling to communicate. This honesty can be powerful when it is followed by responsibility, change, and respect for the harm caused. Real vulnerability does not erase accountability. It deepens it. The signal becomes stronger when emotional disclosure appears exactly when difficult questions are asked. Instead of answering clearly, the person begins crying, describing their past, or explaining how wounded they feel. Their pain may be genuine, but it can still redirect the conversation away from what they did. The darker side appears when vulnerability becomes protection from consequences. They may reveal painful childhood experiences, past betrayal, or mental struggles so that holding them accountable begins to feel cruel. You stop asking for change because you feel guilty for adding to their pain. Over time, their suffering becomes the center of every conflict. Your hurt is postponed, your questions disappear, and their emotional exposure becomes a shield they can hide behind. They are always understood, but you are rarely repaired. Pay attention to what follows the vulnerable moment. Honest vulnerability leads back to responsibility. It says, "This explains me, but it does not excuse me. Manipulative vulnerability says, because I am hurting, you are no longer allowed to question what I did. Sometimes the tears are real, the pain is real, and the accountability is still being escaped. The false apology signal. False apologies focus on your reaction. Real ones address the harm. In human dynamics, the difference often appears in the words someone chooses after hurting you. A false apology sounds like, I am sorry you feel that way. I am sorry you misunderstood, or I am sorry you got upset. The focus stays on your emotion, not their behavior. This protects the person's self-image. They can appear caring without admitting what they did. Your pain becomes the problem, while the action that caused it remains untouched. A real apology sounds different. It names the behavior clearly, recognizes the impact, and accepts responsibility without excuses. The person may say they spoke cruelly, broke trust, ignored a boundary, or failed to keep a promise. They do not need you to minimize the harm so they can feel innocent. The signal becomes stronger when apologies repeat, but behavior does not change. Some people use soft words to calm the moment, restore access, or prevent consequences. Once the tension fades, the same pattern returns. The darker side appears when apology becomes emotional control. They may cry, beg, or speak with intense regret until you comfort them. Suddenly, the person who caused the harm becomes the person receiving reassurance. Your pain is pushed aside while you help them feel forgiven. Pay attention to what happens after the apology. Real remorse creates different behavior, even when change is uncomfortable. False remorse creates temporary peace while protecting the same pattern. An apology is not proven by how emotional it sounds. It is proven by whether the person becomes safer, more honest, and more accountable after receiving another chance. The just joking signal. I was joking may be a test of tolerated disrespect. In human dynamics, humor can hide an insult while protecting the person who delivered it. They may mock your appearance, intelligence, past, ambitions, or insecurities, then quickly call it a joke when they notice your discomfort. A harmless joke usually leaves both people laughing. It does not repeatedly target a known weakness or require one person to hide pain so the other can feel funny. When someone cares about you, your discomfort matters more than defending their intention. The signal becomes stronger when the same type of joke keeps returning. The person may be testing how much disrespect you will accept without consequences. If you laugh nervously, remain silent, or forgive it immediately, they may treat your response as permission to go further. The darker side appears when humor becomes a shield against accountability. If you object, they accuse you of being sensitive, insecure, or unable to take a joke. The conversation shifts from what they said to whether your reaction was reasonable. Their insult disappears while you are forced to defend your feelings. Over time, this can weaken your confidence. You may begin laughing at comments that hurt, avoiding certain clothes, hiding your goals, or questioning qualities you once valued in yourself. The joke slowly becomes a message you are trained to accept. Pay attention to what happens after you say the humor crossed a line. A caring person may feel embarrassed, but they stop. Someone testing control argues for the right to continue. Sometimes, I was joking does not mean the words were harmless. It means the person wanted to express disrespect without accepting the consequences of saying it openly. The comparison signal. Constant comparisons can slowly weaken confidence. In human dynamics, someone may compare your appearance, success, personality, intelligence, or affection with another person. At first, the comments may sound casual. They may praise an ex's ambition, mention how attractive a friend is, or point out that someone else behaves better than you. Healthy relationships can include honest observations, but they do not repeatedly make one person compete for worth. A caring partner addresses concerns directly without using another person as a weapon. They help you understand what they need instead of making you feel replaceable. The signal becomes stronger when comparisons appear after disagreement or whenever you feel confident. The person may say, "My ex never reacted like this," or "Why can't you be more like them?" These words shift the issue away from behavior and toward your value as a person. The darker side appears when comparison is used to create insecurity. By reminding you that someone else could be more attractive, successful, calm, or desirable, they may make you work harder for approval. You begin changing yourself, competing with people who may not even know a competition exists, and fearing that affection can be withdrawn at any moment. Over time, your confidence may depend on finally becoming enough in their eyes. But the standard often keeps moving. Once you improve one quality, another comparison appears. Pay attention to whether comparisons lead to understanding or humiliation. Honest feedback focuses on the relationship. Manipulative comparison keeps you measuring yourself against others so you remain uncertain of your value. Someone who benefits from your insecurity may never let you win, because the comparison only works while you believe love must be earned by defeating an invisible rival. The false choice signal. Someone may offer two choices while hiding better options. In human dynamics, this can sound reasonable because you are technically being allowed to decide. They may say, "Either come with me or stay home. Forgive me now or end the relationship," or "Trust me completely," or "Admit you do not love me." The choices look clear, but they may be designed to trap you inside their preferred outcome. Healthy decisions leave room for discussion. Both people can suggest alternatives, ask for time, or create a solution that respects both sides. A fair partner does not limit your options simply because wider choices reduce their control. The signal becomes stronger when both choices disadvantage you. One option may require surrender, while the other carries guilt, rejection, or punishment. The hidden message is that you are free to choose only within boundaries they created. The darker side appears when false choices are used during emotional pressure. They may demand an answer before you can think, making the situation feel urgent and final. Because neither option feels safe, you may choose the one that causes the least immediate pain rather than the one that protects your long-term well-being. Over time, this can weaken independent thinking. You stop asking what other possibilities exist because every conflict is presented as a narrow test of love, loyalty, or obedience. Pay attention whenever someone says there are only two options. Ask who created those options, who benefits from them, and what possibilities were removed before the choice reached you. Sometimes the decision is not difficult because reality offers no better path. It is difficult because someone has hidden the doors they do not want you to notice. The exclusion signal. Exclusion often appears through silence, delayed replies, inside jokes, and selective invitations. In human dynamics and social groups, rejection is not always spoken openly. Sometimes it is communicated through what is withheld: information, warmth, access, attention, or the feeling of being included. A group may stop responding when you speak, exchange looks you do not understand, or discuss plans you were never told about. One missed invitation may mean nothing. The signal becomes stronger when you repeatedly discover events afterward, receive answers later than everyone else, or notice conversations becoming quiet when you enter. This form of exclusion is powerful because it creates uncertainty. Nobody clearly says you are unwanted, so there is nothing direct to confront. You begin questioning whether you are imagining the distance, whether you did something wrong, or whether you need to work harder to regain acceptance. In human dynamics, A partner may use selective inclusion to control your sense of security. They may introduce you warmly one day, then act distant around certain people. They may hide plans, delay important information, or make you feel like an outsider in parts of their life. The darker side appears when exclusion becomes punishment. After disagreement, invitations disappear, replies slow down, private jokes increase around you. The person does not openly attack you. They simply make belonging feel conditional. Over time, you may become more obedient, quieter, or desperate to please because inclusion now feels like a reward that can be removed. Pay attention to patterns, not one event. Healthy relationships occasionally miss things, but repair the misunderstanding. Deliberate exclusion keeps you uncertain because uncertainty makes you easier to influence. Sometimes the silence around you is not accidental. It is the message, the isolation claim signal. Everyone dislikes you may be an attempt to isolate you. In human dynamics, this statement can feel devastating because it attacks more than one relationship. It suggests that an entire group has judged you negatively, even if nobody has said anything directly. The phrase creates social fear. You may begin questioning every silence, delayed reply, or changed expression. Ordinary behavior starts feeling like secret rejection. Instead of checking the facts, you become anxious, defensive, and more dependent on the person delivering the message. Sometimes several people may genuinely have concerns. Healthy communication is specific. The person explains who said what, why it matters, and encourages direct conversation. The signal becomes darker when the claim stays vague, dramatic, and impossible to verify. A controlling partner may say their friends dislike you, their family distrusts you, or everyone thinks you are difficult. They may present themselves as the only person still willing to understand or defend you. This makes their approval feel more valuable, while your other connections begin to feel unsafe. The darker purpose is isolation. If you believe others secretly reject you, you may stop reaching out, avoid gatherings, or withdraw before anyone can hurt you. The person spreading the claim becomes your main source of information, comfort, and belonging. Over time, they can shape your view of every relationship around you. You may defend them more fiercely because you believe they are the only one who stayed. Pay attention to whether the claim leads toward direct communication or deeper dependence. Genuine concern helps you verify and repair relationships. Manipulative isolation keeps everything uncertain because the person gains more control when you believe the whole world has turned against you except them. The collected weakness signal. Some people collect weaknesses during closeness and use them during conflict. In human dynamics, emotional intimacy often begins with private stories, fears, insecurities, regrets, and wounds. Sharing these details can create trust because you believe the other person will protect what you reveal. A caring partner treats vulnerability with respect. Even during anger, they do not weaponize your past, expose private pain, or attack the parts of you that required courage to share. Their frustration may be real, but your emotional safety still matters. The signal becomes stronger when someone remembers your deepest insecurity and suddenly brings it into an unrelated argument. They may mention your childhood, past rejection, family problems, appearance, or fear of abandonment, not to solve the conflict, but to hurt you where they know it will reach deepest. The darker side appears when closeness becomes information gathering. The person listens carefully, comforts you, and encourages deeper disclosure. You feel understood, but they are also learning which words can silence you, which fears can control you, and which wounds can make you doubt yourself. During conflict, those details become weapons. They may say nobody else will tolerate you, remind you of past failures, or compare themselves to someone who once hurt you. The attack feels especially painful because it uses information you shared in safety. Over time, you may stop being vulnerable. You hide emotions, avoid honesty, and fear that every confession could become future ammunition. Pay attention to how someone handles private knowledge when angry. Love does not require perfect behavior, but it should protect exposed wounds. Someone who studies your pain to understand you builds intimacy. Someone who studies it to defeat you is building an emotional weapons list. The unpredictability signal. Unpredictability can make others focus on pleasing one person. In human dynamics, someone may shift quickly between warmth and coldness, affection and distance, praise and criticism. Because their reactions are difficult to predict, the other person begins studying every word, expression, and movement to avoid triggering another emotional change. At first, this may look like moodiness. Everyone has difficult days, stress, and moments when they need space. The signal becomes stronger when the shifts repeatedly follow moments of independence, disagreement, or unmet expectations. Warmth appears when you cooperate. Distance appears when you resist. Unpredictability creates emotional tension because the mind naturally searches for patterns. You begin asking what you did wrong, what mood they are in, and what version of them will appear next. Instead of focusing on your own needs, you focus on keeping them stable. The darker side appears when unpredictability becomes a form of control. The person does not need to demand obedience directly. They only need to make affection uncertain. When kindness arrives without warning after periods of coldness, it feels more powerful because you have been waiting for relief. Over time, you may become more careful, quiet, and eager to please. You change plans, hide concerns, and avoid boundaries because peace feels temporary and fragile. Their emotional state begins controlling the atmosphere around them. Pay attention to whether their changing behavior is followed by honest explanation and responsibility. A healthy person may struggle emotionally, but still communicates, apologizes, and works towards stability. A controlling person keeps you guessing because uncertainty gives them influence. When you spend more time managing someone's reactions than expressing your own truth, unpredictability is no longer just a mood. It has become the system organizing the relationship, the tracked generosity signal. Generosity can become control when every favor is tracked. In human dynamics, gifts, help, money, rides, introductions, or emotional support may appear loving at first. The person seems thoughtful, reliable, and willing to do more than others ever have for you. Healthy generosity is given freely. It does not create fear, pressure, or a hidden obligation. A caring partner may appreciate gratitude, but they do not keep a record of every sacrifice or use kindness to control future decisions. The signal becomes stronger when favors return during conflict. They may remind you how much they spent, how often they helped, or what they gave up for you. Suddenly, generosity becomes evidence that you owe them agreement, loyalty, access, or forgiveness. The darker side appears when every favor is an investment in control. They may give more than you requested, refuse repayment, or insist on helping even when you say no. Later, they use that history to make your boundaries look selfish. You may hear, "After everything I have done for you," whenever you disagree or try to leave. This can create powerful guilt. You begin tolerating behavior you would normally reject because ending the relationship feels ungrateful. Their kindness becomes a chain built from moments that once felt like love. Over time, you may stop accepting help, yet still feel trapped by what has already been given. The emotional debt keeps growing because the person decides its value. Pay attention to whether generosity increases your freedom or reduces it. Real kindness supports you without purchasing influence. Manipulative generosity keeps receipts even when none are written down. Sometimes the person giving the most is not trying to care for you. They are building a future argument for why you should no longer be allowed to say no, the vagueness signal. Vagueness may be used to deny obvious meaning later. In human dynamics, someone may speak in hints, half-promises, unclear labels, or emotionally loaded phrases without saying exactly what they mean. At first, this can feel mysterious, careful, or even romantic, but unclear language can also create protection for the person using it. They may say, "Let's see where this goes," "You know how I feel," or "I never said we were exclusive." Their words are open enough to create hope, but loose enough to escape responsibility later. You hear commitment while they preserve an exit. Healthy uncertainty is honest. A person can admit they are confused, need time, or cannot promise more. The signal becomes stronger when they repeatedly avoid clear answers while still accepting the benefits of closeness, loyalty, affection, or emotional support. The darker side appears when vagueness becomes deliberate deniability. They may imply a future, encourage emotional investment, and behave like a partner, then retreat behind technical wording when questioned. Because nothing was stated directly, they claim you misunderstood. This can make you doubt your own judgment. You replay conversations, search for exact phrases, and wonder whether you invented the meaning. Meanwhile, they continue benefiting from an arrangement they refuse to define. Over time, vagueness can keep you emotionally suspended. You are close enough to stay hopeful but never secure enough to ask for more without feeling demanding. Pay attention to whether unclear language eventually becomes clearer through action and honest conversation. Genuine uncertainty moves toward understanding. Strategic vagueness keeps meaning flexible because flexibility protects the person from accountability. Sometimes the confusion is not a communication failure. It is the safest place for someone who wants your commitment without giving you anything definite enough to hold them to later. The commitment without responsibility signal. Someone may avoid commitment while demanding its benefits. In human dynamics, they may refuse labels, future plans, or clear responsibility, yet still expect loyalty, emotional support, availability, affection, and exclusivity. They want the comfort of a relationship without accepting the duties that make one secure. At first, this arrangement may seem flexible. They may say they are not ready, need more time, or dislike labels. Those feelings can be genuine. The signal becomes stronger when they use uncertainty to protect themselves while placing relationship-level expectations on you. They may become jealous when you speak to others, expect immediate replies, rely on you during difficult moments, or act hurt when you are unavailable. Yet when you ask where the relationship is going, they retreat, become vague, or accuse you of adding pressure. The darker side appears when commitment is withheld to preserve control. Because nothing is clearly defined, they can demand closeness when it benefits them and deny responsibility when their behavior hurts you. You are expected to act committed while they remain free to change the rules. This creates emotional imbalance. You begin proving loyalty to earn security, hoping enough patience, support, or understanding will finally make them choose you. But the reward keeps moving further away. Over time, you may feel guilty for asking for clarity because they frame your needs as desperation or control. Meanwhile, they continue receiving everything they once claimed they were not ready to give. Pay attention to whether their expectations match their level of commitment. Someone who wants relationship benefits while refusing relationship responsibility may not be confused. They may simply prefer an arrangement where your devotion is guaranteed while their accountability remains optional. The moving expectations signal. Moving expectations keep others feeling never good enough. In human dynamics, someone may set a standard, watch you reach it, then quietly replace it with a new one. You become more attentive, more patient, more available, or more understanding, yet the approval you expected never arrives. At first, this may look like normal growth. Relationships require adjustment, and people's needs can change. The signal becomes stronger when the changes always move in one direction. You keep giving more, while the other person keeps deciding it is still not enough. They may say they need more communication, then complain that you talk too much. They ask for space, then accuse you of becoming distant. They demand honesty, then punish you for saying something uncomfortable. Whatever you choose, the standard shifts after the decision. This creates emotional confusion because success becomes impossible. You begin studying their moods, correcting yourself constantly, and working harder to earn a sense of security that never lasts. The problem no longer feels like one behavior. It begins to feel like something is wrong with who you are. The darker side appears when moving expectations are used to maintain control. If you ever felt fully accepted, you might stop chasing approval. By keeping you slightly disappointed in yourself, the person ensures that your attention remains focused on pleasing them. Over time, your confidence becomes tied to an achievement they never allow you to complete. You apologize more, question your instincts, and accept less in return. Pay attention to whether expectations are clear, mutual, and stable enough to meet. Healthy standards support growth and recognize effort. Manipulative standards keep changing because the goal is not improvement. The goal is to keep you proving your worth to someone who benefits from never letting you feel that you have finally done enough. The warmth and coldness signal. Alternating warmth and coldness can create emotional dependence. In human dynamics, someone may overwhelm you with affection, attention, praise, and closeness, then suddenly become distant without explanation. The warmth makes you feel chosen. The coldness makes you fear that you have lost something precious. At first, the change may seem like stress, confusion, or a bad mood. Everyone sometimes needs space. The signal becomes stronger when affection repeatedly disappears after you express a need, set a boundary, or become less available. Warmth returns only when you chase, apologize, or give the person what they want. This pattern affects the mind because uncertain rewards can become more powerful than steady ones. When affection is unpredictable, you begin paying closer attention to every message, expression, and shift in tone. A small moment of kindness feels unusually intense because it arrives after emotional hunger. The darker side appears when someone uses this cycle deliberately. They give enough warmth to create hope, then withdraw before you feel secure. You begin working harder to recover the version of them you met at the beginning. Each return of affection feels like proof that the relationship can still become what you imagined. Over time, relief may begin to feel like love. You stop asking whether the relationship is stable and focus only on ending the distance. Your boundaries weaken because you fear another cold period. Pay attention to whether changes in affection are explained honestly and repaired consistently. Healthy people may become distant, but they communicate and take responsibility. Manipulative people keep warmth unpredictable because uncertainty makes their attention feel valuable. When someone repeatedly creates the pain and then becomes the relief, emotional dependence can grow before you realize the relationship is training you to chase what should have been given steadily. The independence punishment signal. Independence may be punished through withdrawn affection, access, or approval. In human dynamics, someone may appear supportive while your choices remain close to what they want. But the moment you make plans alone, strengthen friendships, protect your time, or disagree with them, their warmth may suddenly disappear. At first, the withdrawal can seem like disappointment. A partner may naturally feel left out or need reassurance when routines change. The signal becomes stronger when affection repeatedly depends on your obedience. You receive warmth when you stay available, agree or prioritize them, then face silence, distance, or criticism when you act independently. This pattern teaches you that freedom has an emotional price. Each time you make your own choice, access to the person becomes uncertain. They may ignore messages, cancel plans, stop offering affection, or behave as though your independence proves you do not care. The darker side appears when withdrawal becomes silent discipline. Nothing is explained directly. Instead, you are left to discover which action caused the punishment and what you must do to restore closeness. You may apologize even when you did nothing wrong, abandon plans, or reduce contact with others just to bring the warmth back. Over time, you begin controlling yourself on their behalf. You ask permission without calling it permission. You avoid opportunities, friendships, and honest opinions because losing their approval feels unbearable. Pay attention to what happens when your life expands beyond the relationship. A healthy partner may miss you, express concerns, or ask for balance, but they do not make love disappear because you exercised autonomy. Someone who punishes independence is not simply afraid of losing closeness. They may benefit from keeping your world small enough that their affection remains the reward guiding every decision you make. The "only I understand you" signal. Only I understand you can be an isolation tactic. In human dynamics, this phrase can feel deeply comforting because it touches the fear of being unseen, misunderstood, or emotionally alone. The person presents themselves as the one human being who truly recognizes your pain, motives, and hidden self. Healthy understanding creates freedom. A caring partner may know you deeply, but they still respect your friendships, family ties, and outside support. They do not need to be the only person you trust in order to feel important. The signal becomes stronger when they begin dismissing everyone else. They may say, "Your friends do not really know you, your family always judges you, or nobody will ever accept you the way they do." Slowly, the relationship is framed as the only safe place left. The darker side appears when understanding becomes emotional ownership. The person may use private knowledge to convince you that leaving them means returning to a world where nobody sees you. They become both your comfort and the source defining everyone else as unsafe. This can make isolation feel like loyalty. You stop sharing problems with others, withdraw from people who challenge the relationship, and rely more heavily on the person who keeps insisting they are your only true connection. Over time, their interpretation of you may replace your own. They tell you what you feel, why you react, and who can be trusted, because they once made you feel deeply understood. Questioning them begins to feel like betraying the only person who ever truly saw you. Pay attention to whether their understanding expands your support or replaces it. Real love helps you feel more connected to yourself and others. Manipulative understanding makes one person seem necessary by convincing you that everyone outside the relationship is incapable of knowing, accepting, or protecting the real you. The moral choice trap. False choices make obedience seem like the only moral option. In human dynamics, someone may frame a decision so that agreeing with them appears loving, loyal, and mature, while disagreeing appears selfish, cruel, or dishonest. The choice is presented as moral, but the real goal may be control. They may say, "If you loved me, you would do this. A loyal partner would not question me." Or, "Either support me or admit you never cared." These statements remove the middle ground. Your concerns, limits, and alternative solutions disappear, leaving obedience as the only option that protects your character. Healthy relationships allow complexity. You can love someone and still disagree. You can care deeply while saying no. A respectful partner explains what they need without turning your morality into the price of cooperation. The signal becomes stronger when every boundary is treated as evidence of bad character. Instead of discussing the request, the person judges what your refusal supposedly says about you. You begin defending whether you are kind, loyal, or committed rather than deciding whether the request is fair. The darker side appears when moral pressure trains you to betray yourself. You may accept behavior you dislike, abandon important relationships, or ignore your instincts because refusal now feels like proof that you are a bad person. Over time, obedience starts feeling like love, while independence feels like guilt. The person no longer needs to force you directly. They only need to control which choice appears morally acceptable. Pay attention whenever someone makes your goodness depend on giving them what they want. Real morality respects consent, truth, and freedom. A false moral choice hides better options because control becomes easier when protecting yourself is made to feel like the wrong thing to do. The confusion control signal. Confusion makes people easier to control. In human dynamics, someone may change stories, send mixed signals, deny what they said, or behave warmly one day and coldly the next. The uncertainty keeps your mind busy searching for an explanation instead of judging the pattern clearly. Healthy relationships can still include misunderstanding. People communicate badly, forget details, or need time to understand their feelings. The signal becomes stronger when confusion becomes constant and always leaves one person with more power. You may ask a simple question and receive a complicated answer. You may raise one concern, only for the conversation to shift towards your tone, your past, or something unrelated. By the end, you feel guilty, exhausted, and unsure what the original issue even was. The darker side appears when confusion is created deliberately. A person may give partial truths, contradict themselves, or offer just enough affection to keep hope alive. Because nothing feels certain, you keep returning for clarity from the same person, creating the uncertainty. This can weaken your confidence. You begin doubting your memory, rereading messages, and asking others whether your reaction is reasonable. Clear decisions become harder because every fact seems unstable. Over time, you may accept their version of events simply because you are tired of trying to understand. That is where confusion becomes control. The person no longer needs to prove they are right. They only need to make you uncertain enough to stop trusting yourself. Pay attention to whether conversations create greater clarity or deeper fog. Honest communication may be uncomfortable, but it makes reality easier to understand. Manipulative communication keeps reality moving because a confused person is easier to delay, redirect, and persuade than someone who can clearly name what is happening. The memory denial signal. Repeated denial of your memory can make you depend on theirs. In human dynamics, someone may insist that a conversation never happened, a promise was never made, or their words meant something completely different. At first, you may assume one of you simply remembers the moment incorrectly. Memory is imperfect, and honest misunderstandings happen. The signal becomes stronger when the other person's version always protects them, removes responsibility, or makes your reaction seem unreasonable. Each disagreement ends with you questioning what you heard, saw, or understood. They may say, "You are remembering it wrong. I never said that." Or, "You always twist things." Even when you feel certain, their confidence can weaken yours. You begin replaying conversations, checking old messages, and searching for proof before trusting your own experience. The darker side appears when memory denial becomes deliberate reality control. By repeatedly rejecting your version of events, the person positions themselves as the final authority on what happened. Their memory becomes reliable by default. while yours is treated as emotional, confused, or dishonest. Over time, you may start asking them to explain your own experiences back to you. You hesitate before confronting contradictions because you expect to be corrected. This dependence makes manipulation easier because the person no longer needs to hide every action perfectly. They only need to convince you that your memory cannot be trusted. Pay attention to whether disagreements are explored with curiosity or settled through intimidation. A respectful partner can say, "I remember it differently," without attacking your sanity or certainty. Someone seeking control needs their version to replace yours completely. When another person repeatedly makes you distrust your own mind, the argument is no longer only about the past. It is about who gets to define reality in the relationship. The strategic incompetence signal. Strategic incompetence shifts responsibility while avoiding blame. In human dynamics, someone may repeatedly claim they are bad at planning, cleaning, communicating, remembering dates, managing money, or handling emotional conversations. At first, this may seem like harmless weakness. Over time, however, their inability quietly becomes your responsibility. Healthy relationships divide effort fairly. People may have different strengths, but both partners learn, improve, and contribute. A caring person does not need to perform every task perfectly. They only need to show honest effort and respect the burden their limitations place on someone else. The signal becomes stronger when incompetence appears only around unwanted responsibilities. The person may complete difficult tasks at work, manage hobbies carefully, or remember plans that matter to them, yet suddenly become helpless when the task benefits the relationship. They forget important details, do the job poorly, or wait until you take over. The darker side appears when failure is used as training. If they perform badly enough, complain enough, or create more work than they remove, you may stop asking them for help. They avoid saying no directly. Instead, they make relying on them so exhausting that doing everything yourself feels easier. This allows them to escape responsibility while protecting their image. If you criticize them, they may say they tried, accuse you of being controlling, or act hurt that their effort was not appreciated. Over time, you become the planner, fixer, reminder, and emotional manager. They remain free while you carry the invisible weight. Pay attention to whether mistakes lead to learning. Genuine incompetence improves with practice. Strategic incompetence remains useful to the person performing it because every repeated failure teaches you to expect less, ask for less, and eventually carry the responsibility they never intended to share. The tone diversion signal. Boundary breakers may attack your tone to avoid discussing their actions. In human dynamics, you may raise a valid concern about disrespect, dishonesty, pressure, or a crossed limit, only for the other person to focus entirely on how you said it. Suddenly, your volume, facial expression, timing, or choice of words becomes the main problem. Tone matters in healthy communication. Speaking cruelly, threateningly, or aggressively can cause harm even when the concern is valid, but the signal becomes stronger when someone uses an imperfect tone to erase the issue completely. Instead of addressing what they did, they demand that you defend how you reacted. They may say, "I would listen if you spoke respectfully. You are too emotional," or "Your attitude is the real problem." You begin apologizing for sounding upset, while their boundary violation remains unanswered. The darker side appears when they repeatedly provoke you, ignore calm requests, and only acknowledge the issue after frustration changes your tone. Then they use your reaction as proof that you are unreasonable. The focus moves from their pattern to your emotional response. This can train you to believe you must speak perfectly before you deserve respect. You rehearse every sentence, soften every concern, and suppress visible emotion, hoping flawless delivery will finally produce accountability. Yet the standard keeps moving because your tone was never the real obstacle. Pay attention to whether the person can address both issues. A mature partner may say your delivery hurt them while still taking responsibility for crossing the boundary. Someone avoiding accountability treats your tone as an escape route. When the conversation always ends with you apologizing for how you spoke and them never answering for what they did, the discussion has been redirected exactly where they wanted it. The selfishness accusation signal. Manipulators may call you selfish when you stop serving them. In human dynamics, this accusation often appears when you begin protecting your time, energy, money, attention, or emotional health. As long as you remain available, forgiving, and easy to depend on, you may be praised as loving and generous. The moment you pull back, their description of you changes. Healthy relationships allow both people to have needs. A caring partner may feel disappointed when you say no, but they do not treat self-protection as betrayal. They understand that love does not require constant sacrifice from one person. The signal becomes stronger when selfish is used whenever your choice stops benefiting them. You may be called selfish for resting, seeing friends, keeping money, refusing a request, or asking them to handle their own responsibilities. The accusation shifts attention away from whether their demand is fair and toward whether you are a good person. The darker side appears when guilt becomes a tool for restoring access. They know you value kindness, so they attack that identity. You begin questioning yourself, over-explaining your boundary, and giving more than you wanted just to prove you are not uncaring. Over time, service begins to feel like the price of love. You become afraid that any act of independence will make you look cruel. Meanwhile, their needs remain urgent while yours are described as excessive. Pay attention to when the accusation appears. Genuine selfishness ignores others completely. A healthy boundary protects one person without controlling another. When someone only calls you selfish after you stop making their life easier, they may not be describing your character. They may be protesting the loss of a benefit they had grown comfortable receiving from you. The superiority support signal. Some people support you only while feeling superior. In human dynamics, they may seem caring when you are struggling, uncertain, dependent, or behind them in some area of life. They offer advice, comfort, money, connections, or constant guidance, and their help can feel generous. Healthy support wants you to become stronger. A caring partner celebrates your progress, respects your independence, and does not need you to remain beneath them. Their pride grows when you grow. The signal becomes stronger when support changes after you improve. The person who once encouraged you may become colder when you gain confidence, earn more, receive praise, or stop needing their help. Your progress removes the position that made them feel important. They may begin minimizing your achievements, finding faults in your success, or reminding you how helpless you once were. Instead of seeing your growth as shared joy, they experience it as a threat to the relationship's old balance. The darker side appears when support is designed to create dependence. They may help in ways that make you rely on them, then resist every step toward independence. If you make decisions alone, they accuse you of becoming arrogant, ungrateful, or different. This can create confusion because their support once felt like love. You may feel guilty for outgrowing the role they preferred you to occupy. To preserve closeness, you may hide progress, downplay confidence, or continue asking for help you no longer need. Pay attention to how someone reacts when you become stronger than the version they first supported. Real love does not need your weakness to feel valuable. Someone who only feels close while standing above you may not be invested in your growth. They may be invested in the height your struggle gives them. The convenient forgetfulness signal. Convenient forgetfulness often favors the person forgetting. In human dynamics, someone may repeatedly forget promises, boundaries, important dates, or conversations that require effort from them. Yet they remember details that protect their interests, prove your mistakes, or support what they want. Memory is imperfect, and honest forgetfulness happens. People get distracted, overwhelmed, or stressed. The signal becomes stronger when the forgetting follows a clear pattern. They forget what they owe, what they agreed to change, or what hurt you, but remember every favor they gave and every time you disappointed them. This pattern shifts responsibility. Each forgotten promise forces you to remind, repeat, and explain. You become the keeper of the relationship's emotional record while they remain free from the weight of what was said. The darker side appears when forgetfulness becomes a shield against accountability. They may say, "I do not remember that," as though missing memory erases the impact. Because you cannot prove every private conversation, they gain room to deny, delay, or repeat the same behavior. Over time, you may start documenting messages, saving screenshots, or rehearsing exact words before confronting them. The relationship begins to feel like a courtroom, because your experience is only accepted when evidence survives their forgetting. Pay attention to what memory consistently protects. Genuine forgetfulness is random and usually followed by effort to repair the problem. Convenient forgetfulness repeatedly benefits the same person. When someone forgets every obligation but remembers every advantage, the issue may not be weak memory. It may be a pattern that keeps responsibility moving away from them and back onto you. The public embarrassment signal. Public embarrassment can quietly lower someone's status. In human dynamics and social groups, one person may expose a private mistake, mock an insecurity, correct you sharply, or tell a humiliating story in front of others. The moment is presented as humor, honesty, or harmless teasing, but the social effect can be much deeper. Healthy partners protect each other's dignity. They may disagree, correct mistakes, or joke playfully, but they remain aware of the audience and the emotional impact. If something sensitive must be discussed, they usually choose privacy rather than turning the moment into entertainment. The signal becomes stronger when embarrassment appears around people whose approval matters. The person may interrupt you, reveal private information, or make you look foolish, just as others are beginning to respect or admire you. The laughter shifts attention toward your weakness while strengthening their position. The darker side appears when humiliation is used to reshape the group's view of you. One public joke may seem small, but repeated moments can create an identity around you. The difficult one, the foolish one, the overly sensitive one, or the person nobody takes seriously. Once that image forms, even your honest reactions may be interpreted through it. This can make you quieter in public. You stop sharing opinions, avoid social gatherings, or monitor every word because you fear becoming the next joke. Your shrinking confidence gives the other person even more control over the room. Pay attention to whether they repair the harm after noticing your discomfort. A caring person apologizes and protects you more carefully. Someone seeking status may accuse you of ruining the mood. Public embarrassment is rarely only about one joke. Repeated humiliation can quietly teach an entire group whose dignity is protected and whose dignity is available for everyone to use. The outsider pressure signal. Bringing outsiders into private conflict creates pressure and confusion. In human dynamics, a disagreement that belongs between two people may suddenly include friends, relatives, co-workers, or mutual contacts. Instead of speaking directly with you, the person gathers opinions, shares private details, or asks others to confront you. Healthy support is different. People sometimes need trusted advice to understand a difficult situation. The signal becomes stronger when outsiders are given a one-sided story, and then used as evidence that you are wrong. The conflict stops being about what happened and becomes a public vote on your character. This creates pressure because you are no longer responding to one person. You feel watched, judged, and surrounded. Even a reasonable boundary can become harder to defend when several people repeat the same accusation. The darker side appears when outsiders are recruited to control the outcome. A partner may tell family members you are selfish, ask friends to message you, or reveal private conversations to damage your reputation. Each outsider receives selected details, while the context that explains your reaction is hidden. Confusion grows because every person now carries a different version of the story. You spend more time defending yourself, correcting rumors, and explaining private moments than addressing the original issue. The person who brought everyone in can remain at the center, controlling what each side knows. Over time, you may surrender simply to stop the social pressure. That surrender can be mistaken for agreement. Pay attention to whether outside involvement creates clarity or increases dependence on one person's version. Healthy advice supports direct communication. Manipulative involvement turns a private disagreement into a social courtroom where the verdict is shaped before you are allowed to speak. The false concern signal. False concern can hide information gathering or reputation damage. In human dynamics and social groups, someone may approach you with a soft voice, careful questions, and the appearance of wanting to help. They ask whether you are okay, what happened, or whether something is wrong in the relationship. The attention feels caring, so you may reveal more than you normally would. Healthy concern protects your privacy. A sincere person listens without pushing, respects what you choose not to share, and uses the information to support you. They do not spread private details or turn your vulnerable moment into social currency. The signal becomes stronger when the questions are unusually specific, repeated, or focused on conflict. The person may ask what was said, who was involved, whether you plan to leave, or what weaknesses exist in the relationship. They appear supportive, but their curiosity may be stronger than their compassion. The darker side appears when concern becomes a way to collect damaging information. What you shared privately may later appear in gossip, distorted stories, or conversations you were never part of. The person may present themselves as worried about you while quietly shaping how others see you. This tactic is powerful because concern looks morally safe. If you question their motives, they can say they were only trying to help. Meanwhile, your private pain has already become evidence in someone else's story. Pay attention to what happens after you open up. Genuine concern leaves you feeling protected, clearer, and less alone. False concern leaves your information moving through rooms you never entered. Sometimes the person asking the gentlest questions is not trying to understand your pain. They are gathering the version of you they can later use. The loyalty test signal. Loyalty tests may demand betrayal of your own values. In human dynamics, someone may ask you to prove love by doing something that feels dishonest, unfair, or deeply uncomfortable. They may want you to lie for them, abandon a friend, ignore harmful behavior, reveal private information, or choose them against your better judgment. Healthy loyalty does not require moral surrender. A caring partner may ask for support, reassurance, or commitment, but they do not make your integrity the price of proving love. They understand that real devotion should strengthen your values, not slowly destroy them. The signal becomes stronger when refusal is treated as betrayal. The person may say, "If you were truly loyal, you would do this," or "You are choosing them over me." The request stops being judged by whether it is right and becomes a test of whether you are willing to obey. The darker side appears when loyalty tests isolate you from anyone who might challenge the relationship. You may be pushed to cut off friends, defend obvious wrongdoing, or keep secrets that protect the other person from consequences. Each test becomes more extreme because passing one proves you can be pressured again. Over time, you may begin confusing self-betrayal with commitment. You feel guilty for listening to your conscience because loyalty has been redefined as unquestioning sacrifice. Pay attention to what the test requires you to become. Real loyalty can survive honesty, boundaries, and independent judgment. Manipulative loyalty demands that you silence the parts of yourself that might say no. Sometimes the person asking you to prove devotion is not testing your love. They are testing how much of your character you are willing to abandon to keep them. The witness perfection signal. Abusers often behave perfectly when witnesses are present. In human dynamics, someone may appear patient, charming, generous, and emotionally controlled around friends, relatives, co-workers, or strangers. They speak kindly, praise you publicly, and make the relationship look safe. Once the audience disappears, their behavior may change completely. This contrast is powerful because people trust what they personally observe. If others only see kindness, they may struggle to believe reports of cruelty, intimidation, or control. The public version becomes a shield protecting the private one. Healthy people may act more polished in public, but their basic respect remains consistent. They do not become frightening, humiliating, or controlling the moment nobody is watching. The signal becomes stronger when someone's personality changes sharply depending on who can witness the interaction. The darker side appears when perfect public behavior is deliberate reputation management. The person may know exactly how far they can go privately while preserving an image of innocence outside the relationship. They may even treat you especially well before others, making your private experience feel harder to explain. This can create deep isolation. When you speak up, people may say, "That does not sound like them," or remind you how caring they seem. You begin questioning whether anyone will believe you. Meanwhile, the person may use their reputation to portray your distress as instability or ingratitude. Pay attention to whether respect survives privacy. Character is not revealed only by how someone behaves when approval is available. It is revealed by what they permit themselves to do when they believe there will be no witnesses, no consequences, and nobody nearby to challenge the version of them they worked so carefully to create. The half-truth signal. The strongest lies contain enough truth to survive inspection. In human dynamics, complete fabrications are risky because they can collapse under one clear fact. A skilled liar may instead tell a story built mostly from real events while changing one crucial detail, hiding one person, or removing the part that reveals their true intention. This makes the story feel believable. The place may be real, the time may be accurate, and most of the conversation may have happened exactly as described. Because several details can be confirmed, you may assume the entire account is honest. Healthy communication does not require perfect memory, but it remains open to clarification. A sincere person may correct themselves, admit uncertainty, and answer reasonable questions without becoming hostile. The signal becomes stronger when every verified detail supports the speaker, while the missing part always removes responsibility. The darker side appears when truth is used as camouflage. Someone may admit they spoke to another person but hide the emotional intimacy. They may confess to being somewhere while hiding why they went. They may reveal a smaller mistake so you stop searching for the larger one. This can make deception difficult to recognize because your investigation keeps finding real facts. You begin feeling guilty for remaining suspicious, even though something in the story still feels incomplete. The liar benefits from your belief that truth and deception cannot exist in the same sentence. Pay attention to what the truthful details distract you from examining. A story may survive inspection because the visible parts are accurate, not because the hidden meaning is honest. Sometimes the most convincing lie is not the opposite of reality. It is reality carefully edited until the one fact that changes everything has disappeared. The therapy language signal. Therapy language can make control sound healthy. In human dynamics, someone may use words like boundaries, triggers, emotional safety, healing, accountability, or self-care to make unfair behavior sound mature and reasonable. The language feels intelligent, so the control becomes harder to recognize. Healthy emotional language creates clarity. A caring partner explains their needs without removing your freedom. They may say they need space, feel overwhelmed, or want a calmer conversation, but they still respect your right to disagree, ask questions, and make your own choices. The signal becomes stronger when psychological terms are used mainly to silence you. Someone may call your questions invalidation, your disagreement, emotional abuse, or your boundary avoidant behavior. Instead of discussing what happened, they label you until defending yourself feels impossible. The darker side appears when therapy language becomes moral authority. They may say they are protecting their peace while punishing you with silence, setting a boundary while controlling who you see, or holding you accountable while refusing to examine their own behavior. The words sound healthy, but the result leaves only one person with power. This can make you distrust your emotional judgment. You begin wondering whether normal needs are toxic, whether defending yourself is manipulation, or whether saying no means you are unhealed. Because the person sounds informed, their interpretation may feel more valid than your lived experience. Pay attention to whether the language increases mutual understanding or ends the conversation. Real emotional awareness accepts complexity and shared responsibility. Manipulative therapy language turns ordinary disagreement into a diagnosis, giving one person the power to define what is healthy, what is harmful, and which feelings are allowed to matter. The instability label signal. Resistance may be labeled instability to weaken your credibility. In human dynamics, someone may describe you as irrational, dramatic, unstable, or emotionally unsafe the moment you question their behavior, reject a demand, or refuse to stay silent. Your resistance becomes the problem, while the action that caused it disappears from view. Healthy partners can disagree with your reaction without attacking your sanity or character. They may say a conversation became too intense, ask for a pause, or explain how your delivery affected them. But they still address the original concern and respect your right to challenge what feels wrong. The signal becomes stronger when the label appears whenever you become harder to control. Calm questions are called accusations. Boundaries are described as overreactions. Anger after repeated disrespect is presented as proof that you cannot be trusted. The person turns your emotional response into evidence against your entire perspective. The darker side appears when this story is shared with others. Friends, relatives, or professionals may hear that you are unstable before they ever hear what happened. Once the label spreads, your attempts to defend yourself can be interpreted as further proof. The person who harmed you now appears calm and concerned, while your distress weakens your credibility. Over time, you may begin suppressing normal emotions because you fear confirming the image created about you. You speak more softly, collect evidence, and question whether your reactions are reasonable. Pay attention to whether your resistance is examined or discredited. A caring person wants to understand why you are reacting. A controlling person needs your reaction to look irrational because once your resistance is believed, their behavior becomes much harder to defend.